Okay.
Good morning. Welcome to the April 28th Board of Supervisors and City Council meeting. It's another first for both of us. And I'd like to say thank you again to county staff for all that you've been doing the past weeks. And I'd like to turn it now over to the mayor of the City of Angels.
Okay, welcome to the joint meeting, and I think we're going to post the flag and pledge allegiance if you'll join me in that.
Did you need to do roll call, Mayor Joe?
I think we did that, didn't we?
We did not do it broadcasting.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Roll call. Susan, can you handle that for the city, please?
Sure. Mayor Oliveira.
Present.
Vice Mayor Brolio.
Present.
Councilmember Herman.
Present.
Councilmember Follendorf.
Present.
Councilmember Matilde.
Present.
All members are present.
Mayor, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Yes, please. Please stand, face the flag. Pledge allegiance
To the flag
United
States of America
and to the
republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you please read the item that's before us?
Item 1 is from Public Health Services to receive an update presentation from staff on COVID-19 novel coronavirus.
Clerk to the board, clerk to the City Council.
Thank you. This is a Public Health Services item, and it is to receive an update presentation from Calaveras County staff on COVID-19 novel coronavirus.
Thank you. Dr. Colada, Mrs. Stranger.
Good morning. This is Dr. Colada. I have a quick update on the current COVID-19 situation affecting Calaveras County, and then I'd like to address some of the specifics regarding the amended local public health officer order to clarify expanded outdoor physical activities in our community. The most recent update regarding statistics on COVID-19 are that California has 42,164 cases and 1,720 deaths. Almost 5,000 cases have been reported in California healthcare workers, which is significant. Calaveras has 13 confirmed cases, with one additional case reported in the past week and a household contact to a previous case residing in the West Point community. No COVID-19 deaths have been reported in Calaveras residents. A total of almost 400 tests have been performed to date on Calaveras residents, with 13 confirmed cases, as I said. The local hospital and medical care system have sufficient capacity to care for patients at this time, including adequate PPE, personal protective equipment supplies, hospital and ICU beds, and ventilators to support critically ill patients with impaired breathing. Calaveras has one licensed skilled nursing facility, a nursing home, Avalon in San Andreas. So far, no COVID-19 cases have been reported in this high-risk facility, with a population of 100 residents and 200 staff. On Monday, the Turlock Nursing and Rehabilitation Center experienced an outbreak with 51 cases and 2 deaths in about 3 days. We're continuing our containment activity and increasing the testing program to protect these vulnerable members of our community and prevent a similar situation here. The alternate care site at Calaveras High School has equipment deployed and is being set up to support an additional 30 beds and can be staffed by State Medical Corps in a relatively short time frame if needed. Additionally, Calaveras County is part of the Region 4 EMS area, Emergency Medical Services area, and we'll have access to a state facility that's called the Sleep Train Arena Alternate Care Site in Sacramento, which is a 400-bed medical site devoted to the care for surge of COVID-19 patients, and we'll have access to that if needed if Mark Twain Medical Center becomes overrun. Testing and contact tracing. Calaveras Public Health has been working in collaboration with Mark Twain Medical Center to increase testing capability to approximately 500 test kits currently available. The revised testing guidelines have been issued to the hospital and local medical providers that expands the criteria for those recommended for COVID-19 tests. And testing statewide is being prioritized. It'll be increased from 16,000 per day last week to 25,000 per day by April 30th, with a goal of reaching 60,000 to 80,000 tests a day in the weeks after that. As part of that effort, California has partnered with Google's sister company, Verily Life Sciences and OptumServe, to open 86 new testing sites around the state with a focus on filling what they term as testing deserts, which are in rural areas like ours. Additionally, the state's working with local health departments to build up an army of contact tracers, some 10,000 strong, to work with local jurisdictions to interview infected patients and contact those that may have been exposed for quarantine recommendations. As I discussed last week, due to a decreased rate of confirmed case counts and disease occurrence, California is striving to reach a point where we can relax the stay-at-home rules implemented to contain the outbreak. Enhanced testing and contact tracing are now the most critical components needed to be able to relax the statewide shelter-in-place orders. Okay, so now what's the status of the current stay-at-home directives? That's a big area of interest, I know, with everybody in our community and your constituents. Let's discuss the status of our state and local Calaveras stay-at-home public health orders and what we can do to modify some of those current restrictions. I want to start by reminding everyone, including Calaveras residents, that we are all subject to the governor's stay-at-home executive order. This establishes the directive to stay at home, defines essential versus non-essential businesses and activities, and details the types of allowed and non-allowed activities on which we can engage in. California took early and aggressive steps to contain this outbreak, which has helped to keep overall cases and fatalities low. It's no accident Calaveras County's not been hit hard. What we can do now is to start our community on the path to reopening. The first step in that direction was announced Wednesday and consists of allowing the healthcare system to resume certain procedures that have been put on hold, like cancer treatment, elective surgeries, testing for colonoscopy, that kind of thing. Additionally, the state executive order of the governor allows for individual and household outdoor pursuits for exercise and physical activity. Today, I'm issuing an amended public health officer order to provide clarification for enhanced outdoor physical activities in our community to proceed, such as hiking, jogging, hunting, fishing, boating, golf, ATV, and equestrian trail usage, as long as these activities are undertaken with adherence to strict social distancing practices and maintenance of at least 6 feet between participants. Residents may use outdoor parks and green spaces, but children's playground equipment will remain off limits. Vehicle parking in parking lots designated for these outdoor activity venues, such as boat docks, golf courses, trailheads, will be allowed, with the exception that users will not congregate and maintain social distancing of at least 6 feet while accessing their vehicles. This amended public health order doesn't change the designations of what the state defines as essential and non-essential activities and businesses. We can't do that on the local level. Very few of the currently closed businesses will be affected by this order. For example, residents may access lakes and waterways with their personal motorized and non-motorized watercraft, but commercial rentals of such equipment remains a non-essential business activity and as such is not allowed under the state mandate. Whenever individuals are outside of their home, whether engaged in an outdoor exercise or going to the grocery store, they're recommended to wear a facial covering over both the nose and the mouth. A full amended public health order will be available online at the Calaveras County Public Health Services website for review. According to the California governor Monday, the state is just weeks away, not months away, from meaningful modifications to the statewide closure order. As the statewide stay-at-home order is amended and relaxed, I'm committed to following right along, assuming the facts regarding COVID-19 activity in Calaveras allows for it. Through the community mitigation efforts and sacrifices of all of our residents over the past 6 weeks, we've successfully flattened the curve, protected our senior residents in our nursing homes and our assisted living facilities, helped our healthcare workers who are on the front line of this fight, and saved lives. But the coronavirus isn't through with us yet. I want to see our economy and society open up. I agree it should be reopened, but it should be opened deliberately, bit by bit, and informed by science. The last thing any of us wants to see is a resurgence of disease activity and an undoing of everything we've built to protect the health of this community. So I'm open for questions or comments from the board or public.
Do any of the supervisors have any questions for Dr. K?
I have a
I
few,
do.
Marita.
Mr. Stopper?
Thank you, Dr. Colada. Working forward, opening up trails, lakes, parks, and other types of uses as we move forward is going to be definitely a benefit to mental health along with public health. I understand that with your position, that's your primary concern is public health and safety, and that's where your concentration is. I also appreciate you acknowledging the economic end of it. As we're moving forward, CSAC, I'm on CSAC with Marita. We're getting updates consistently, as I'm sure the rest of our supervisors are. And they're looking at multiple avenues, and multiple counties have approached the state about more local control as we move forward. So we'll see where that goes with the governor's next order. Moving forward, when you made your announcement last week, I want to appreciate that the golf courses came together and put forward a plan, from their functionality of their point, and presented it to our CAO. And as we move forward, I would appreciate that we respect that they put in the work towards that and got some buy-in to everything when you're putting forward your order, so that they can put in the controls. Because I've been by the golf courses, a few of them, and there are consistently people walking onto the course out of control, and this will instate somewhat of control by the golf courses. So when the golf courses took those steps and came together collaboratively with a plan, I would appreciate we had the respect for that as we move forward, and do it in the best way possible so that they could implement it to the best of their ability for public health and safety. Also, I want to bring up, as we move forward, there's some other things that haven't necessarily been brought up that aren't necessarily on the governor's public order or health order, and that's real estate agents and everything. I received an email from quite a few of our real estate agents in the area. One of them, their national association put forward a strict measures that they're applying nationally. And as we move forward, I would appreciate if that was considered as the implementation for them. I think that, from my perception, it's great when we can get businesses to move forward with how they feel they can implement these measures in the best interest of public health and safety, so that we can get their input on it, so that the public has more buy-in when we move forward on everything. So as we put together our plan and we work forward, we should get as much input from the actual businesses, because they know how their businesses are applied, and they have the best idea on how they can instate these safety measures. with that, I'll leave it at that. I'm in full favor of moving forward on opening up more stuff in the best way that's safe and possible, sir. And I can support you on that. I just think we need to remember and consider the public's perception on how it's applied, because they're the ones that run those businesses. And you know, you're the expert on health. I'm not going to claim any expert from my position as a politician. And they're experts on how they run their business. So you know, just keep that in mind, and I would appreciate you heeding their suggestions as we move forward, sir.
Or any other supervisors have questions for Dr. Colada? Dr. K, I have some. I didn't hear golf mentioned as what would be a permitted use based on similar things to what Supervisor Stopper said. For those activities, the hiking, the roads, the boating, so forth, equestrian, does that mean then people will be able to go to Maloney's, but to get to Maloney's, they have to cross the Bureau of Reclamation roads? That we will be asking the Bureau to lift their restrictions and open the roads. The same with the U.S. Forest Service. So, you know, I'm assuming if we're saying you can boat, you have to get your boat to Maloney's or where have you. Excuse me, they have to go down there. The second would be, the third item would be those businesses that cater to the boating, fishing, and so forth. Will they be allowed to be open? For example, the marina at Maloney's that sell things for people who are boating. For business that rents the paddle boats or sells paddle boats or kayaks, would they be able to be open? And those stores that sell fishing gear, flies, and what have you, would they be able to be open? So these are auxiliary businesses that services those outdoor activities. Thank you.
Yeah, I can address those, some of those questions, Madam Chair. The governor's executive order lists specific exempted essential business activities, and those are, you know, defined in the executive order. And when it comes to commercial enterprises that support some of those activities, those are still considered as non-essential businesses. For example, we can allow a marina to have a boat launch, have an open parking lot, and to have a boat launch, and to be able to have individuals launch their personal watercraft. Of course, maintaining social distancing the whole time. But business activities that support that, for example, fishing bait and tackle shops, the renting of boats and watercraft, are still considered non-essential businesses and are not allowed under the current iteration of the governor's executive order. So what we're doing is providing clarification. What I'm trying to do is in our local public health order is provide clarification for individuals to be able to use the facilities of lakes to launch their watercraft, to park and use the parking facilities of some of these outdoor venues. But the commercial activities that support some of these outdoor recreational activities are still subject to the governor's stay-at-home order and are considered non-essential businesses.
So I have a very pointed question, Dr. K. I know there's, of course, political pressure on supervisors or counties, and I know there is on you too. is there any wiggle room on your behalf to say a bait and tackle shop could be open so I can fish?
Well, I'm not a lawyer. I'm a simple country doctor.
That's what I
But
would get.
But to answer your question, I would need to consult with, people who understand the ins and outs of the governor's executive stay-at-home order in a little bit more detail than I do. I think we could suffice it to say that I understand your interest for allowing the maximum amount of leeway when it comes to opening local businesses that support some of these outdoor activities. And we can revisit that issue with the legal counsel that we have in the county and see if there's any opportunity to take that into account. But like I said previously, we're still subject to the governor's executive order, and some of these decisions we don't have the power to make at the local level.
Okay, thank you. I'd appreciate that, counsel. Are there any, did you
Yeah,
want to say something, counsel?
No, I would just echo what Dr. Colada says. We do not have wiggle room when it comes to the executive order.
So I think a concern we have, just sidebar, is that we're all hearing that it's happening in Tuolumne, Amador, Calusa, wherever, doesn't matter, pick a place. And where they have, and mostly your rural areas. And we understand no congregating. We understand the concern of visitors. We're just looking to see if there is some wiggle room. We'd appreciate your being willing to consider it, both of you. Okay. Any other comments from my colleagues?
I got
Mayor, Dennis. Oh, I didn't see. Sorry, didn't look. I appreciate it. Thank you, Supervisor.
Thank you. Dr. Colada, I appreciate the update. I got to ask a question. When can we get a haircut?
I'll do
it.
Or do I need to fly to Tennessee?
Dennis, I'm happy to share my barber with you.
Yeah, well, I cannot go that short, sorry. I did have some reach out to me regarding not the short-term rentals. We're talking about the Airbnbs, et cetera, but more along the lines of those that normally are renting their houses down in Lake Tulloch area for 30-day periods or 2 to 3 months at a time. At what point are we going to be able to open those up? Because those are not going to be moving traffic in and out. They're just simply taking that particular location for a longer period of time.
Well, Supervisor Mills, the governor's stay-at-home order essentially tells people to stay at home unless they have an essential activity or need to leave their home. Recreational travel has been something that we've been not allowed to go forward because of that. And so if it were a rental to an essential service worker, that would potentially be something that would be allowed to go forward. But at this time, short-term rentals for vacation and recreational use are still subject to the governor's stay-at-home order.
And another thing in regards to the federal lands or New Melones federal reservoirs, it's my understanding in conversation with the congressman that they are going to be reopening Glory Hole or New Melones to public use as well as the federal lands. Rocky Deal and I have been talking back and forth over the last couple of days about doing that. Part of it being in Tuolumne County. Do you have any objection to the federal government reopening those lands to public use? And if so, is it something you'd want to put in writing so that they know what the parameters are that you'd be looking for?
Well, I would say in response to that, Supervisor Mills, we don't have the authority at the local level to open businesses per se. We can regulate the manner in which people engage in outdoor activities that are available to them. But the essential list, as I said, belongs to the state. I'm very open to discussing with federal partners or other people who manage outdoor recreational activities that our local order clarifies that they be allowed to be used. And so that's something that, yes, I would be in favor of.
Thank you. And thank you for your time in putting this together today.
Mayor Oliveira, are you ready to ask your council members if they have any questions of Dr. Colada?
We are. We'll defer. Council, any questions for the doctor?
Well, I have two questions,
Okay.
and this is Linda. One was, I noticed that the executive order, does it take into consideration the local conditions? I know that originally, recently, the governor said it would take into consideration local conditions. Dr. Colada, is that happening?
Not as of this moment. That would be one of the ways that the executive order could be revised to allow those local jurisdictions with low case counts and low disease activity to expand some of their activities. Local jurisdictions can have more stringent or more strict local ordinance, but we can't be less strict than the current executive order unless there are provisions that are put into it that would allow local jurisdictions to relax some of the restrictions if they have low case activities.
Okay, so that's up to the governor, you're saying.
Yes.
Also, so are we even with the governors, we aren't more strict, or where are we?
Well, we are interpreting the governor's stay-at-home order to allow for some of those additional outdoor activities like I discussed, but we are subject to the letter of the executive order, and it's pretty clear when it comes to the definitions of essential services and exemptions for those essential services and businesses.
Okay, the second question was really a constituent asked. She has a shop in the downtown and of Angels Camp about, is it possible for non-essential to have curbside pickup for appointment only, single person shopping, and with sanitation or whatever kind of guidelines? Is that something that's possible right now for like a clothing shop, a gift shop, things that are not considered or non-essential?
Not that I'm aware. The executive order defines essential businesses and non-essential activities. And there is an allowance for certain takeout, foods, restaurants, so that people can get meals and nourishment if they're not able to cook at home. But that's really the only allowance for takeout provisions is around food and beverage services, and not consumer items per se.
I was wondering who is in communication with the governor? Do you think all of these things that I'm just mentioning, the things, are those being brought to him through local representatives like yourself?
Well, as a local health officer in California, I'm part of an organization that's called CCLHO, the California Conference of Local Health Officers. And we have, a representative who is in Sacramento and communicates the concerns of the local health officers to the governor's office. And there are other representative organizations for county government, for county councils, for other representatives of local government to lobby and to, have access to our representatives in Sacramento. Yes.
Okay, well, there is a sense of urgency on a lot of the small businesses. That's just what I'm saying, so, not need to know that there's representation going on for all the smaller businesses. Yeah.
Okay, anything else from City Council?
I have a question or two.
Okay, Veronica?
Good morning. And again, thank you for all the information and the work that you're doing. In regards to the first part of your information that you were giving to us. You said 5,000 plus healthcare workers have tested positive, and that you were concerned about that in regards to the care across California. And of course, our hearts go out to them, and hope they all recoup. However, I also hear from people that I know that are in the medical field that they're closing down floors on hospitals and furloughing doctors and nurses. And I was wondering, if I'm hearing this, the public is hearing this, and because we do have such a low number here, and one contracted within family members, people are chomping at the bit. They want to get back to work. They want to open their businesses, but how do we tell them that there's still hot spots, but it just doesn't happen to be us? Again, what Linda was saying, our businesses all mostly depend on tourism, and obviously, our city and our county is going to be hit extremely hard. Is there a number of health workers that are infected that are critical to the actual caring of other people that have contracted the COVID-19?
Well, I would answer by saying, in my opinion, all healthcare workers are critical for the jobs that they do for patients in our area and statewide. It is true that some areas of California and some areas of the nation have very high levels of COVID-19 infection, and some other areas, rural areas in particular, in California, have low incidence of COVID-19 disease activity at this time. And as soon as there is allowance in the governor's executive stay-at-home order to allow for local jurisdictions to take that into account, if Calaveras has continues to have low case activity, then I'm very much committed to being able to open certain other venues and business activities in the community to the degree allowable by law. At this point, we don't have that luxury right now.
Okay, I also, because we've been, told, first of all, it was 2 weeks, then it was 2 weeks more, and now it's 2 weeks more, and now we're looking at months later. I understand the illness, the virus is serious. However, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, I don't know. We keep hearing in the public forum that more and more people are recovering from it as opposed to passing away from it. With people staying home, the financial burden, the stress of being, cooped up, I guess, and taken away, your whole regular life being taken away. We're hearing more and more about spousal abuse rise, child abuse rise, depression, suicide, crime. Who is talking to the governor about these, I'm going to call them the secondary effects of this COVID-19? And when we look at those numbers, are we putting pressure on the governor's office to take those seriously also? Again, I don't want to sound callous to anyone that has contracted the virus, but again, we also have to consider people aren't going to the doctor when they're having problems with their diabetes. People are afraid to go to a hospital or an emergency room because they don't want to get COVID-19, but their blood pressure is so high and it's out of control. When are we talking about this instead of everything is COVID-19? I want to make sure that if there is an avenue to express those concerns, that they are being taken by the proper authorities, you or supervisors or just the general public. I think it's very, very serious, and I want to make sure that it gets the governor's attention. So would that be your office, or, you know, I'm in District 4, so would it be Dennis Mills? Would it be, you know, who's in charge of that? Who's looking out for all those people?
Well, who communicates with the governor's office? I think a variety of avenues are available for that communication to take place. I'll just sort of answer, and I completely appreciate your concerns and your frustration about this situation. I think it's always good to just sort of back up and see where we are in history right now. This is a pandemic, the likes of this nation, of which this nation has not seen in the last 100 years since the 1918 Spanish influenza outbreak. So this is something that comes along once, every 100 years. So I think it's important not to minimize the severity of this pandemic and the lethality of the COVID-19 virus, especially in people who are at high risk, older people, people with chronic health problems. The case fatality rate from COVID-19 infection is 10 times that of seasonal influenza. And if the virus were to continue its spread through our population, we would right now be seeing our healthcare system completely overwhelmed and patients stacked in emergency departments like Cordwood waiting to be admitted for care. What we've done, these community mitigation activities over the last 6 weeks have really significantly decreased case incidents, have decreased, that we flattened the curve through these mitigation activities. Now there's a question of when can we relax them? When can we take our foot off the gas? And when can we start to reopen things back up again? And so, like I said last week in my presentation to this board, was that there was going to be time frames, and that was going to need to be a process. And my predictions were that we wouldn't be able to see a complete wholesale relaxation of these orders for stay at home and closing of non-essential businesses, those kinds of things, until the summer. So I think we are still in store for some restrictions in our everyday lives and our normal business activities and a lot of those other things for some time still. And we're going to see a slow relaxation of those based on science and based on medicine. But I'm completely sensitive to your concern on this matter. And as long as case incidence stays low in Calaveras County, as I said previously, I'm committed to relax activities in this community that can be in keeping with the governor's stay-at-home executive order.
So in regard, and I do appreciate that. And like I say, I don't want to minimize the severity of the virus. My concern also is what like I say, is the secondary health factors. The increase of, again, spousal abuse, child abuse, depression, suicide, crime rate. Is there an avenue, a very specific avenue to get those statistics, the rise in those statistics, to the governor, so he understands also that it's not Now we are not just dealing with COVID-19. We are now dealing with the effects of shutting down our state. And yes, we've been positive in the effects of flattening that curve. And that is fantastic. However, right now, we're also having illness, due to, again, not seeing doctors. We're having abuse. That's extremely detrimental to anybody's health. Suicide rates, people losing their jobs and not having income puts a stress on people who are normally providing for their families, losing homes, losing businesses. Again, I'm not discounting the COVID-19. I'm saying that we have to start looking at the big picture. And if we have to go through the governor, then he has to understand this. And how do we get there? How do we get his attention on this? Is that your organization that you belong to? Do we contact all our law enforcement and say, hey, you guys have to, we need to get these stats out there to the governor's office? Do we go through supervisors? We need to make sure that the big picture is being seen, not only COVID-19.
Yeah, those are points well taken. I don't have a clear answer to your concerns at this point, but we're definitely going to continue to stay on top of them.
Okay, yeah, because I don't know if you've ever seen any of that. It's not pretty. And it's like, those are things that are lifelong effects,
This is Kristin Stranger with Health and Human Services. I could respond to some of that. I'm going to do a couple of updates when Dr. Colada has completed taking questions, and I can respond in more detail to that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I wanted to say something too, just off of what Veronica is saying. This is Linda. I know last night I emailed the governor, and there's a phone number to call the governor. And also, as a city council, we can write the governor. So I think that it's really communication of the public to the governor, making their will and desires known is super important. And there is that opportunity. So I just, wanted to encourage people, whoever's listening in or part of this, to start communicating to the governor, because he is open to local, saying the local conditions. He's open to that. It's just a matter of moving him to the point where he will say, okay, let's look at the various counties, just like they're doing nationally and federally. They're looking at the various states that are ready. So we have to say, Governor, we're ready. Tuolumne's ready. Some have one. I've looked at all of the different counties, and some have maybe none, so it's something he needs to move. The governor needs to move, and we need to help him move in that direction.
Okay, council, any other questions?
I have one question comment. I would like to echo off of earlier conversation from Supervisor Stopper, talking about the collaboration of the golf courses. I hope that county staff create that as the same priority, and city staff with other business organizations in the community to create a stepping stone of how and what this is going to look like, whether that be educating, giving them the tools to get educated on how to safely reopen as we move forward under the governor's executive order, and making that a priority for our community overall, and working with organizations, not just the Chamber, but GABA, ACPA, Destination Angels Camp, and other stakeholders to get their feedback. Because if we can see success from this, I see that being just as successful with the rest of the business community, because their feedback is important. Thank you.
Okay. Alvin, you have anything?
I would just like to thank Dr. Colada and all the staff from the city and the county and the Board of Supervisors. Everybody's trying to do the best they can during this time. And yeah, the only, and Miranda asked some questions that were answered for me, so thank you. Just in the city of Angels and even where I work in Copperopolis and different things, there are people that are concerned about going back to work and putting food on their table. So I think that will be the next challenge for us, is to try and figure out how to get people back to work as quickly and efficiently as we can, or to think creatively outside the box, and the governor's office could agree with something we're doing. But that's the next challenge I see, is people are scared now of running out of money and trying to support their families. So that's all I have at the moment. Thank you.
Okay. I think we've heard from council. I don't have anything specifically that hasn't already been answered. Thank you very much. I would just add my thanks to all the city and county staff that are just putting in long hours and a wonderful effort in this process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. Is there any comments from the public on this item from Dr. Colada?
Madam Chair, I have several. The following emails were intended for the April 21st meeting and were inadvertently sent to an email box that we did not have access to. So they're being read into the record today. The first is from Jeanette Pence. Many are asking the board's support to open our local golf courses in Calaveras County. Before the closure at the La Quintana's course, social distancing as well as other precautions were already in place, such as one person to a cart, unless related, carts being sanitized between uses, no removing flag sticks, and no racks in the bunker and ball washers were covered. This being an outdoor sport, it appears it would be a logical choice to start the reopen process. La Quintana management has expressed that they are willing to implement whatever changes or procedures are recommended. Many feel being outside on the golf course, maintaining social distance, and following any procedure put in place can be a safe place to be. Thank you for your consideration. The next is from Valerie and Danny Paget. We are strongly urging you to allow La Quintana Golf Course to open back up. Most surrounding courses already have, and many have never shut down. Social distancing is easily adapted to while playing golf, and if that is the only reason to keep it completely closed, then by all means open with strict guidelines. Please, if the course doesn't open soon, it may not recover, and that is totally unacceptable. We can't lose this jewel of Calaveras County. The next is from Judith Bren and Ed Bren. Consider opening La Quintana Golf Course. Golf is a solo activity. Walking on the golf course is no different than walking on streets. My husband and I are in our late 70s, and golf is an exercise that gets us out of our home and moving, which is far better than being idle with TV and eating. Our knees prevent us from bending down gardening and walking on asphalt streets. It is easy to keep social distancing on the course because it is a distraction to be too close to another golfer. The golf course is following all sterilization procedures to keep everyone safe. La Quintana Golf Course is only one of a few closed. All Sacramento courses are open, and Amador County has reopened Castle Oaks Golf Course. If La Quintana Golf Course is not open soon, it may not be able to open ever. This greatly affects our economy, home values, and livelihood. The next is received from Beth Patch. Please reconsider your position on reopening the golf course. This would include following all recommendations such as safe distancing. We know that other courses have now reopened and would appreciate having the same opportunities to enjoy fresh air and positive mental and physical activities. Thank you. The next was received from Jack Patch. Please revisit reopening La Quintana. Right now we are spending our money going out of the county to play golf. Let's support our own business here in Calaveras. Practicing safe distancing and other precautions, but allowing us to enjoy and support our own golf course. The next is from Kathy Eaton. Please reopen. This is a safe way for us to all get fresh air and exercise. The course will do all that is expected to keep us safe, including one person per golf cart. Cart cleaned after each use. No flag sticks or rakes on the course, etc. Many other California golf courses remain open. Ours should be too. We could ask that players must be from Calaveras County to limit outsiders. Thank you. The next is from Patty and Hank Hendershot. In watching the local and national news, we both feel it's time to open our country. Other courses are opening. We have been getting emails from them that they are open with guidelines. This course is good for our community, and there are a lot of us that play golf. Sacramento courses never closed, and they has a lot more people living in their community. Playing golf can continue to follow guidelines recommended by health officials. This includes social distancing, individual carts sanitized between usage, no handling same items such as flag sticks, cups, and scorecards. Bunker rakes are not available during this period. Our pro shop continues to require social distancing as our main focus is to keep everyone healthy and safe. You need to know that the course is willing to implement whatever changes or procedures you recommend. We all know that being outside on the golf course, maintaining social distancing is one of the safest places to be. The next was received from Todd. It is time to open La Quintana Golf Course. This knee-jerk reaction on the part of California politicians has put many of our local businesses in jeopardy. 11 cases of the virus in 2.5 months. No evidence of hotspot in the county. Come on, use some common sense. The golf course has instituted effective distancing and hygiene procedures before being ordered to close by the county. Fresh air and exercise is important to body and mind. There was no reported transmission of disease documented at our golf course prior to your ordered closing. Open this business now. Save our crown jewel business in Valley Springs. Help us save our community from this unnecessary and ill-advised government outreach. The next was received from Sharon Moyles. As a member of La Quintana, I treasure the golfing community and will always abide by the laws in order. With that said, I do believe the golf course is a safe place to be as long as we abide by the rules governed to us, which includes one person to a cart and maintain the social distancing. Even the sheriff agreed to the manner in which the play has continued at La Quintana. I think all of us have shared with the supervisors the importance of this golf club to the people who live in Valley Springs. Not only is it a wonderful activity for those who golf, but it is a social gathering place for families and friends. It would be a huge loss to our community if La Quintana were not to continue. We as members and Valley Springs residents will do everything possible to continue to keep the course open. The next was received from Brenda Howard. La Quintana is a valuable asset to this community. It draws golfers from all over the Bay Area and the Valley regions that bring money into our community. If the course doesn't open soon, even if only for local residents at this time, it may never open, which would be a shame. Playing golf can be done while following all the recommended guidelines for public safety: social distancing, individual carts, one person per cart, sanitizing between usages, no handling of the flag sticks or bunker rakes. Pro Shop can limit how many people inside at a time. Besides that, it would allow people to be outdoors enjoying the fresh air and getting some exercise at the same time. Golfers would be willing to implement whatever changes or procedures recommended to keep this course open for locals for now and out-of-towners in the future. Please, please, please reopen our golf course. The next was received from Judy Dillon. I am a resident of La Cantena and was informed there is a board meeting tonight. I received an email asking that I contact you regarding the reopening of La Cantena Golf Course using the following argument. Playing golf can continue to follow guidelines recommended by health officials. This includes social distancing, individual carts, sanitized between usages, no handling same items such as flag sticks, cups, and scorecards, among other things. I am requesting that the golf course not be reopened as the course is currently being played by a large number of people, many of which are not following these guidelines. The individual who was the source of this email is one of these. Please continue to follow the guidelines of the medical and scientific community regarding the pandemic. Reopening would also mean opening the course to those outside of our county, thus making us even more susceptible to the virus. The following emails were received prior to today's meeting. The first was received from Thomas Hicks. I am writing this email on behalf of the golf club at Copper Valley. Under the March 19th, 2020 order by the governor, we were forced to close our golf club operations, including the golf course, dining facilities, and overnight bungalows. This closure has been an extreme hardship to our employees, golf members, and ownership. The maintenance of a golf course, whether it is open or not, costs in excess of $1.2 million per year. The members pay a portion of this cost, and they have paid for the months of March and April without the benefit of the use of the golf course. Our club has diligently worked with the management of the other 3 golf courses in Calaveras County, along with Albert Alt, the CAO, to craft preventative measures, which have been submitted to the county health officer. Our club is willing to adopt and fully comply with these measures. It should be noted that nearly every other county in Northern California has agreed to allow golf operations to resume by adopting similar measures. As a result, we are receiving many calls and emails from our members as to why our course is not open. I do not believe we can expect our members to pay another month without the golf privileges that they pay for each month. The lack of payment would be a further financial hardship for our property, which has already suffered well over $350,000 in lost revenue. We are in the prime golf season, and further delay will make it nearly impossible to recoup any portion of these losses. We respectfully request that the Board of Supervisors immediately authorize the health officer to accept the preventative measures and allow the golf courses in Calaveras County to resume operations. Thank you for your important consideration of this request. The next was received from Mike Christophe from Greenhorn Creek. I am writing this email on behalf of Greenhorn Creek Resort in Angels Camp, California. Under the March 27, 2020 order by the Calaveras County Health Officer, we were forced to close most of our operations, including the golf course, inside dining facilities, pools, tennis courts, and lodging facilities. This closure has been an extreme hardship to our employees, our members, and guests who have booked events at our facility, as well as for the owner. The maintenance of the golf course and facilities have continued, yet our revenue have dropped over 75% in the month of April. Our business will not survive unless the Board of Supervisors acts quickly. Over the past week, our facility has worked with the leaders at 3 other golf courses in Calaveras County, along with Albert Alt, the CAO, to craft the preventative measures which have been submitted to the county health officer. Our club is willing to adopt these measures during this COVID-19 crisis, which were similar to the measures we took immediately after Governor Gavin Newsom's order on March 17th, 2020. It should be noted that nearly every other county in Northern California has agreed to allow golf operations to resume by adopting similar measures, and some counties have never even closed since golf was an integral part of outdoor exercise and good for mental health. As a result, we are receiving many calls and emails from our members as to why our course is not open. In addition, we have had people on the golf course or fishing in our golf lakes, but we do not have the staff to keep them off our property. Opening our course will allow us to begin to operate as well as keep people off our course that should not be on it. The next was received from the Board of Directors and membership of Greenhorn Creek's Men's Golf Club. The Greenhorn Creek Men's Golf Club Board of Directors, in support of our 140 members, is submitting this letter. Our membership understands the value of your time during the worldwide health crisis, and we feel it better to speak with one voice rather than send you 140 separate letters with the same basic message. Our membership is made up of primarily retired men from a variety of backgrounds, which include small business owners, corporate leaders, first responders, government officials from local, state, and federal agencies. Collectively, we have been incident commanders during large-scale natural disasters and managed risk in the corporate world. We have learned to use best practices and follow the chain of command throughout our varied careers. We feel safe in saying that many of us understand the complex situation you are attempting to navigate, and we do not envy your position. We understand everyone wants your attention and demands that you address their needs with the utmost urgency. Our intention is not to get to the front of the line or take you away from more pressing issues, but to provide you with some insight in the hopes of making one of your countless decisions easier. It is our understanding that under the governor's executive order, golf courses were not specifically ordered to close. In fact, many courses in neighboring counties and throughout the state have remained open and have successfully followed the governor's guidelines for social distancing. Public and private courses have established a set of best practices. Golf's governing bodies have accepted and refined these practices, and the membership of Greenhorn Creek was adjusting to and abiding by those practices prior to the county health officer's order on March 28th, 2020, that required Greenhorn Creek to close its doors. The next is from Dawn Connors. I am writing you today to request the course at Copper Valley be allowed to reopen for the playing of golf. I believe that with the new county requirements for all golf courses in Calaveras County, the requirements that have been established by the ownership at Copper Valley, and along with our very strong proactive men's and women's clubs, we will be able to safely manage the playing of golf at Copper Valley. Thank you for your consideration. The next was received from the Women's Golf Club at Copper Valley. Our board of directors has received the policies and procedures developed by all of the Calaveras County golf courses, including the golf club at Copper Valley, to address the COVID-19 stay-at-home order. We believe teaming with other golf courses in Calaveras County will help to communicate the need for consistent compliance at each facility. The Women's Golf Club at Copper Valley board members have reviewed the document in detail. The board agrees that we have confidence in the club management to carry out business following these guidelines safely and correctly. Furthermore, we have every confidence that our members will follow the procedures set forth in the document. Sincerely, Linda Petty. The next was received from the Board of Directors of the Greenhorn Creek Women's Golf Association. Greenhorn Creek Women's Golf Association is a vibrant organization with 100 members, the majority living in Angels Camp and Murphys. Most of us are retired women, and many of the ladies live alone, feeling extreme isolation. Golf is literally at the heart of our social activities. It not only fulfills our need to feel part of a community, but more importantly, it sustains our physical, emotional, and mental health. We have women in their 70s and 80s who continue to live full and rewarding lives because they have been active in golf as they age. The vast majority of our members would tell you that the main reason they moved to Angels Camp was to be active participants in the Women's Golf Club at Greenhorn Creek. The purpose of this letter is to express our support in the opening of golf courses in Calaveras County. Before the golf course closures, Greenhorn Creek had already demonstrated that with specific restrictions in place, social distancing while playing golf is safe and easy to maintain. All the members we've heard from that played during the time tell us they felt completely safe under those protective measures. Even though Angels Camp has not had a COVID-19 case, our members are still using an abundance of caution to stay free of the virus. That is why we would feel comfortable if play on the course is limited to county residents and Greenhorn Creek members. Right now, members who wish to golf must travel to other counties that have opened their courses. We do not see this as a good option, just the only option right now. We are also concerned for the Greenhorn Creek staff who have lost jobs because of the shutdown. With so many people unemployed due to the virus and business closures, we encourage you to open these up again. The next is from Pam Williams, Chair, Greenhorn Creek Greens Committee. The Greenhorn Creek Greens Committee is an advisory board with a focus on golf course issues and operations at Greenhorn Creek Resort. All of our committee members are also full-time residents of Angels Camp. We would like to thank you for the work you have done to keep our county safe. The intent of this letter is to support consideration to open the golf courses within Calaveras County. Golf is an activity where county residents can get healthy exercise outside. It also helps us cope with the feelings of isolation while still maintaining social distancing as outlined in the guidelines issued by the state of California. The majority of our surrounding counties have never restricted golf or are in the process of reopening their courses with certain guidelines. Greenhorn Creek management, along with neighboring golf courses, have drafted measures for the golf course operations to protect our golfing members and the community as a whole. These included a variety of rules such as one person per cart unless living in the same household. They would also implement aggressive sanitation measures for carts and facilities, including hand sanitizer stations located throughout the course. Additionally, play would be limited to county residents, members of the course, and NCGA members for each golf course within the county. Data shows that there have been no COVID-19 cases reported within the Angels Camp community. It is our belief that the golf community can follow all of the state of California guidelines, including the social distancing rules, and maintain a healthy environment. We have the health of all members of our community. We value the health of all members of our community and truly feel that it is with proper rules and oversight in place, now is the time to open play at Greenhorn Creek. The next was received from Jack Cox, Lake Tulloch Alliance. Under the current orders of the County Health Director, nearly all outdoor recreation is effectively closed in Calaveras County, including boating, fishing, golf, and use of public parks. In light of recent released research, including that of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, it is clear that these orders should be withdrawn and/or canceled by the Board of Supervisors, since getting people outdoors creates healthy environments and doesn't impede sensible action to fight the spread of the coronavirus. DHS scientists confirmed last Friday that the coronavirus dies the fastest when it is exposed to direct sunlight. William Bryan, Science and Technology Advisor to the Department of Homeland Security, made the announcement at the White House on Thursday that government scientists found ultraviolet rays had a potent impact on the pathogen, offering hope its spread may ease over the summer. The virus dies quickest in the presence of direct sunlight, Bryan said. There have been other studies that confirm similar facts. Experts also contend that confining people inside is counterproductive when they can be outside in the sunlight in warm temperatures and fresh air. Many people live on Lake Tulloch, and under these orders, we are supposedly not to boat on the lake. The current orders included kayaking and not just power boats. Frankly, these orders are unenforceable, but most importantly, they don't enhance public health, but deter it. Many of our docks are on private property, and we live here. This weekend, many people from our community were boating safely on the lake. No one's health was a risk. Under the current orders, all golf courses in our county are also closed, while all adjoining counties' courses are open. It is important to note that the county where the California state capitol is located, Sacramento County, never closed its golf courses. The next was received from the Copper Valley Men's Club Board of Directors. The plans to resume golf activities at courses in Calaveras County address the primary concerns for social distancing. It establishes clear, concise procedures with a focus on cross-contamination, which can be quickly implemented, monitored, and enforced. Golf courses are open in Sacramento, Placer, San Joaquin, and other California counties. Many of us get our exercise by playing golf, and we are all good at practicing social distancing and wearing the appropriate protective clothing. As we continue to pay monthly dues, it is frustrating to see a pristine golf course ready for play and knowing other counties are permitting golf and we continue to be denied the opportunity. Over 95% of the golf membership live within the gated community. The proposal to limit play to residents would limit outside exposure, provide some exercise and mental health as we all desire. The next was received from Vicki Mills. This comment is directed to Dr. Colada. You have been a supporter of the research from Stanford University in the past. Because of your support, public health has been able to help many of Calaveras residents with chronic conditions. The course that was first put together by Stanford University has been invaluable in teaching our residents how to deal with their chronic conditions. I request that you give the same support to the latest study out of Stanford University concerning this latest virus. The mental health of this county is in greater danger from this shutdown than the citizens from the virus. I believe if you use your mind and look at the situation the same way you looked at the chronic condition course, you will start reopening our county. The next is from Irving Happel. San Benito County has opened its parks and golf courses. San Benito County recorded 47 cases, 2 deaths, and 4 active cases currently, and they have opened golf courses to county residents. It is time to open Calaveras County. The next was received from New Maloney's Lake Marina. This comment pertains to agenda item 1. I am an employee of New Maloney's Lake Marina and as such receive hundreds of phone calls questioning the closure of New Maloney's Lake and surrounding recreation areas. I have no logical answer to these inquiries. The lake offers opportunities to enjoy the fresh air activities such as hiking, fishing, and boating, all doable while following social distancing guidelines. Our customers have second homes, houseboats, that they are unable to access due to the closure. We question why other second homers are able to use their recreation homes while our houseboaters are not. Again, social distancing and staying at home is more than doable at the lake. The message from our county health officials is unclear as it relates to the opening of New Maloney's Lake, our houseboat customers' use of their homes, and the opening of our marina store and boat rentals. Our company has a 3-tier plan which ensures sanitizing and disinfecting of our boats and store, managing customers coming into the marina so that social distancing and health safety are maintained, etc. This plan is ready to implement when we are able to open our business. Should New Maloney's Lake not open soon, our business and the community of houseboaters who call our lake home are in serious jeopardy of permanent closure. The last was a voicemail received from Bruce Croker. Why haven't we opened our golf courses and other things since we don't have any cases of COVID-19? San Joaquin, Sacramento, Kern County, and several others are open. I'd like to know when or if this is going to happen soon. I play all of the courses in this county. I believe that we also have phone callers.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so caller ending in 886, you are live with the Board of Supervisors.
Hi there, good morning. I have no comments. My questions were answered already by previous callers or comments from the supervisors. Thank you.
Thank you. The next caller. Caller number with the number ending in 477, you are live with the Board of Supervisors. Go ahead and make your comment.
Yes, hi, good morning. This is Corey Brunell in Valley Springs. And thank you to Ms. Matilde for making, some fantastic points that remind us the treatment we implement here should not be worse than the disease. I wanted to, something that hasn't come up this morning is I wanted to remind everyone that the justification, excuse me, given us for mandatory shelter in place was that it's necessary to prevent healthcare providers from being overwhelmed. And that was the deal communities everywhere, including our own, accepted until such time as the curve had flattened and risk to our healthcare infrastructure had passed. And now evidence from all over the country is making it plainly clear that risk is no longer material. Recent press is riddled with stories of empty hospitals everywhere, and not one hospital anywhere in the country is overwhelmed right now. Even our own Mark Twain Hospital can be described as a ghost town. And we're all aware hospitals around the country are laying off staff due to lack of demand. Couple that with multiple recent antibody studies all over the world, uniformly indicating widespread contraction already exists. And common sense can tell us that Dignity Health is at no risk of being overwhelmed in Calaveras County under any reasonable projections. So, importantly, the objective of shelter in place is not a zero rate of infection, but rather a manageable rate of hospitalization. Frighteningly, the language of many health officers and politicians has changed to imply that the objective is safety and the avoidance of any infection. And that is not the deal that was pitched to communities when business closures went into effect. It would require far more draconian measures than the original objective of protecting healthcare facilities. Our county's policies, as much as we can control at the local level, really should reflect only those constraints sufficient enough to achieve that original objective. And one thing we absolutely can control locally is enforcement or lack of enforcement of the governor's executive order. I'd request you implement such an approach to the extent that businesses can be open while still protecting our healthcare infrastructure. For example, just because a business is open does not mean it must be closed by local law enforcement if its practices don't present a danger to our healthcare system. So just some food for thought for those interested in some creative ways to have more local control over the situation should the state fail to act in our best interest soon enough. So thank you all very much for your service to our community. I greatly appreciate it. I know everyone I know in this community does, and I wish you all the very best of health. Thank you.
The next
Madam Clerk, are there other calls?
Yes, there are. The next caller, caller ending in 33. You're live with the Board of Supervisors. Please go ahead with your comment. You'll have 3 minutes.
Madam Clerk, are there other calls? Yes, there are. The next
Caller ending in 233. It is your time to give public comment. Are you there?
Supervisors, please. About 3 minutes.
Yes, hi. This is Vicki Ranke. And
caller ending in 233.
I need you to
give public comment.
Vicki, I need you to mute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, but we can hear the computer in the background. You need to mute your audio.
Oh. Okay, sorry. Yes,
Okay,
this is Vicki Ranke. And I want to say thank you to Corey Bernal for his comments. They're very logical and make sense. So my comment today is to encourage our Board of Supervisors, who are our elected officials, and our City Council, our elected officials, to do what Linda was talking about, and that is to write letters to our governor, explain our situation here, and start demanding that we are able to get our people back to work. So many of the people that live in Calaveras County own their own businesses. They cannot survive if we have to shut down for another month. And it's reasonable to believe, for example, hairdressers, they can definitely do social distancing as far as having one person in at a time. Local people here have all been isolated for months, or at least a month. And so I would like to encourage all of you to look at the new studies that are out there. There's one by the Southern California, University of Southern California, the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health, and the Stanford study. They're finding out real time what's happening with this virus. And I don't think that we have to be that fearful. The healthy people should not be quarantined. Sick people should be quarantined. And if you are sick, I'm sure that you would stay home and not go into crowds. But to close our economy down up here is going to be devastating. So anyway, my main point was to encourage our Board of Supervisors to get out there and write letters and be our advocates. Don't just follow along what our governor says if it doesn't make sense. I thank you very much.
Thank you. The next caller, one moment. Caller ending in 600. You're live with the Board of Supervisors. Please make your comment starting now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning, supervisors and city council members. This is Tim Uderty speaking as an individual this morning. I would like to ask for clarification on Dr. K's amendment to the emergency order and the shutdown to see if that might include the Angels Gun Club. My understanding is there are quite a few first responders there's a backlog of them trying to complete their classes. So thank you, and I'll listen to the response offline.
Thank you. Are there any other callers? There are no other callers, Madam Chair. I do not know if the City of Angels has any or not.
Mayor, does the city have any public comments they wish to present?
Well, I don't have visibility to the call-in screen. Susan, do you see anything?
All of the calls were directed to the clerk of the board,
okay.
The Board of Supervisors. So we did not accept public comment directly, and I did not receive any letters.
Okay.
Thank you. I do want to clarify for the record that the Board of Supervisors has no authority to authorize the health officer to make any changes to his recommendation. We are required to take action to facilitate any of the health officer's orders, not the other way around, even though we like to think we can. Dr. Colada, if you're still breathing, would you like to respond to any of the questions or comments that were made?
Mainly those were comments, and they were points well taken. The last caller had a specific question about the opening of the Angels Camp Gun Club. We've received federal guidance that gun stores, firearms dealers, shooting ranges, those kinds of activities are considered essential activities and would be allowed to go forward. But we'll definitely revisit that as well and provide clarification on that locally.
Okay, thank you. And just to confirm, the golf courses will or will not be open under the criteria they said they would open by? Is that going to be part of your order too?
Yes, golf is going to be one of the clarifications that will be allowed to go forward. There will be, as part of my amended health officer order, a specific exhibit, Exhibit A. And Exhibit A will delineate the specific procedures and regulations that the golf courses need to address in order to safely allow for golf activity on their courses.
Okay. Dr. Colada, on behalf of the board and the City Council, we truly thank you for your time today. And Mrs. Strange, we will be getting to you in a moment, just in case Dr. Colada wanted to sign off.
Thank you. I appreciate your support, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mrs. Stranger.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board and members of the City Council. Kristin Stranger, Health and Human Services Agency. I wanted to just provide a couple of updates as well as address a few of the questions that have come about throughout the board presentation. For one, to start with, is an update on Project Room Key, which the Board of Supervisors did provide policy direction for staff to pursue implementation of Project Room Key, which is a non-congregate sheltering opportunity for vulnerable populations, and that was done during the April 7th board meeting. Today, there is one more item which is on the board's agenda, and we believe that will complete the immediate needs. We are just rounding out the securing of the last bit of wraparound support services, and then we'll be able to operationalize that program. So I wanted to recognize the team for being able to do such a heavy lift in such a short amount of time. And that is something that we will be making available throughout the community for those that need it and meet the very specific criteria. Another program and service that has been recently brought to light under the governor's most recent update to the communities is on Friday. This past Friday, the governor's office said in his daily briefing about a new program that would be operationalizing locally, which is the Restaurants Deliver Home Meals for Seniors programs. And what that program is it will enlist community restaurants to prepare meals that will be delivered to older Californians who are isolating at home during California's stay-at-home order. The program will also support local restaurant workers and owners who have lost business during the pandemic. So we just, again, have learned about that program Friday afternoon, and it's Tuesday morning. So we are working as fast as we can to understand all of the parameters. We don't have a lot of direction yet from the state in terms of how to operationalize that program, but we are, again, working as quickly as we can to identify what the parameters are and work to bring those types of resources to our community. Lastly, I wanted to address the comment that was made about the impacts beyond the public health impacts, the social services as well as behavioral health impacts, particularly, and what we as a county have done to try to address them. So as it pertains to advocacy, it's not just the public health departments or the local health officers who are communicating with the governors and state authorities on the impacts to COVID-19. It's other representative associations across all sectors. So we are members of County Welfare Directors Association, Behavioral Health Directors Association, et cetera. And those entities are speaking in more specific detail to the impacts that COVID-19 is having on the mental health and economic impacts within our state. So that I make that point to address how it is that we are working on the other non-public health per se specific advocacy efforts at the state level. Locally, what we have done to try to ensure that our community members have access to both behavioral health, social services, benefit programs, is we did a number of press releases and outreach campaigns earlier on, and we continue to reinforce those efforts. Making sure community members know that we have a 24-hour mental health crisis line that anybody in the community, regardless of insurance, has access to. Our crisis line is 209-754-3239 or 1-800-499-3030. All of this information is available not only on the Health and Human Services webpage, but also on the COVID-19 specific resources page. Our COVID-19 resources page also lists a number of community-based resources, food bank information, benefit program information. A lot of the benefit programs such as CalWorks, CalFresh, Medi-Cal, a lot of those are accessible and can be applied for over the phone or via the internet. And so we encourage community members that if you are experiencing need, that there are ways to access those programs through the internet and telephone services. And we encourage community members to do so. And then lastly, I wanted to just kind of communicate about how public health also is, not only are we looking locally how to interpret and under Dr. Colada's direction, implement local orders and local impacts, we also serve as an advisor at the state level to be able to provide information about how the state government needs in order to roll out the elements of the roadmap to modify the stay-at-home order. So what I mean by that is local health department staff are also responding to surveys and questions from the state as the governor's office mull through those 6 indicators necessary to reopen the local economy. So we are providing data such as contact tracing data, workforce data, alternate care site data, those types of things. So in addition to local administration, we also serve as providing information to the state level so that they can make state level decisions that will impact how we progress as we move forward through the roadmap to modify the stay-at-home order. And we do know that the governor's office intends to provide more detail on that during today's noon briefing. And with that, I can take any questions that are in pertain to those items.
Did the board have any questions for Mrs. Stranger? Mayor Oliveira, do your city council members have any questions or comments?
City council questions?
I had a question about the room key. I was wondering how we could have information about how it's implemented. Kind of details about that.
Sure. So the project room key information, I can, that information will be made available on our COVID-19 webpage. Preliminarily, I have provided the updates throughout these briefings, during these board meetings, going over what the elements of the program are and such. But we will make that information available as we fine tune the last of the components of it, available on our website with the resources tab.
Yeah, I appreciate that because it is 2 of the hotels are, in Angels Camp. And so, implementation is important. I kind of figured you've been talking about it with the board. And so sorry, I wasn't watching that. But if there's a way of us being updated, that would be great.
Okay.
Maria, I had my hand raised. If you're okay with me actually commenting during city council.
I didn't say it. I forgot. Sorry, Mr. Stopper, please proceed.
More to the point, I want to thank all the public for the emails they've written in. you know, this is just a small part of what I'm sure the city council receives on a regular basis and the board of supervisors. I want to re-accentuate a point I made 2 weeks ago during the board meeting, that we need to be proactive. It's pertinent. We need to start taking steps now towards bringing our businesses together to bring forward the criteria to implement safe standards for opening their businesses, so that when the governor's order does come through, Calaveras County isn't behind the ball this time. We want to be in front of the ball for once. Right now, this order that we're putting through is behind a majority of the rural areas across the state. I can understand taking steps forward tentatively and taking in the data, but the data shows in Calaveras County with 13 total cases so far that it's been flat, and thank whoever that there's been no deaths so far. So I think if Dr. Colada is amenable to that, we can start getting some staff together to start taking comments in and start getting real plans together. So when that time comes, we're ready. That's all. Question mark.
Thank you, Mr. Stopper. Mr. Mills?
Yeah, this question I think is more towards Ms. Stranger because of the situation with the food supply. I mean, it's not just the toilet paper issue. As we have a very fragile food supply chain, California is going to start experiencing food shortages. And that is going to directly impact your ability to deliver services as well. Has there been any discussion from your office or anybody at the state level about how they're going to be able to help the most vulnerable of our population in dealing with food shortages?
Yes, so I think I'll respond. If I'm understanding, is the question, Supervisor Mills, more about the supply chain or more about the vulnerable populations, or kind of a combination of both?
It'd be a combination of both.
Okay. So in regard to the food supply chain impacts, I have not been as involved in those types of conversations. Those are our state level conversations that Health and Human Services Directors, I don't believe are as much involved, but your point is very well taken. In regard to the impact of access to food for vulnerable populations, most certainly we have been involved in those conversations. What we have been doing to try to mitigate that issue is to make sure that community members know how to access CalFresh benefits, which is the formerly known as food stamps benefits, as I was speaking to earlier, as well as make sure that they have knowledge about how to access the local food pantry system, and also other various programs that occur throughout the county to try to address those food issues. When we do learn of an individual who has a need, what we do is try to connect that individual to a local resource that they can receive that assistance from.
Well, just so everybody understands, I do have a lot of relatives and friends in the Midwest, and they're now burying their cattle and their hogs and their chickens. This eventually is going to affect the supply chain throughout the United States. So whether we want to accept that issue here or how it's going to affect us, I think it's just something has to be started in a conversation now. And so as we start to come out of this situation, that we're more than prepared to respond to it. It's like I said before, it's not going to just be toilet paper. It's going to be, I think, more critical than that as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Oliveira, did you want to check again with your council?
Sure, thanks. Council, any more input?
This is Alvin Brolio. I would like to agree with Mr. Stopper. I think the business community, once again, not to beat a drum, but the business community is really, we need to focus on that and try working out a solution and be ahead of the curve on that one. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else from the council? Okay, Marita, back to you.
Thank you. I really want to thank the city council. Well, first, I think we need to thank staff for both the city and the county for putting this together. And Mayor Joe, I haven't used that term since Alioto was mayor in San Francisco. I was thinking, that's kind of exciting. I'm going to call him Mayor Joe. Thank you very much for participating with us. Mrs. Stranger and Dr. Colada, thank you both for your presentation, and hopefully that we can meet again under better circumstances. So, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to turn it over to you to close out the city's portion of this meeting.
All right. Again, our thanks to county and city staff for all the hard work. As a formality basis, I think we need to make a motion to adjourn, do we not?
I think you
I'll
make. Okay.
Alvin Brolio, I'll move to adjournment.
I'll second.
The motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 5-0 to adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
Could we,
Okay.
could the,
Thank you,
Did you all want to
take a 5-minute break?
Yes, I was
Yeah.
going to say, we could take a 5-minute recess.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Tuffanelli.
Hi, Marita.
I didn't even know if you were here. You've been so quiet.
Well, all the questions that I had were being asked and answered. So,
Got it.
and as far as your shirts, I'm not giving any shirts out until we're back in business and running. So you'll just have to use the one that you're using at the gym.
Oh, well, I want to make sure, aren't you an essential worker?
Who took the picture?
Somebody at the gym. That's why I need to go back to the gym.
Oh, well, it's not a recent picture then. It's an older picture.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
We're going to start in about 1 minute. We're just waiting for Supervisor Garamendi and Mills to return to the meeting. There they are. So are you ready?
Grab my coffee.
Oh, gosh. Ben went to get coffee.
I'm back.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start the encoder and we're going to continue to broadcast, okay?
Is Jack with us?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
we have the full board.
Got it.
Okay, here we go, Marita.
Okay, I'd like to reconvene the meeting. We're on still the regular agenda item 1, but item number 2 for the Health and Human Service Agency. Madam Clerk.
Item 2 is to authorize the board chair to execute lease agreements with Angels Inn, Travel Lodge, and Sierra Inn beginning April 21, 2020 on a month-to-month term agreement in an amount not to exceed $50,000 for each lease respectively, and to provide non-congregate shelter options for Calaveras County vulnerable populations during the novel coronavirus pandemic.
Good morning, Kristin Stranger, Health and Human Services Agency. The item before you is another component of rolling out the Project Room Key project, of which we have provided updates since the April 7th, 2020 board meeting. I think it's important to note that the lease agreement that we are utilizing has terms within it that allows for an as-needed basis, meaning there is a rate that is put forward for each individual room that is needed to serve to serve members of the vulnerable population as defined in the criteria. And if there is not a need for that room, we do not pay the cost is the point I'm trying to make. So again, this is a component that rolls out the remainder of Project Room Key. And as I had mentioned earlier in the more broad COVID-19 update, we are just finalizing the last of the wraparound support services and the processes and procedures for operation. And then we will be looking to officially launch very shortly. That I can take any questions.
Are there any questions from the board on this item? There are 3 agreements before us. If there's no questions from the board, are there any questions or comments from the public on this?
We're checking. We don't have anybody yet. Do you want to wait a minute or so to see if anybody is in the process of attempting to call in?
About 32 seconds.
Okay. Madam Chair, I have put the public comment phone numbers on the screen. If anybody wants to call in, the two numbers listed are 669-900-9128 or 346-248-7799. The meeting ID number is 965-0008-0437, and the password is 804891. We don't have anyone calling in, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Stranger, just want to get back, just a quick thing to our prior meeting with the City Council on the criteria for who gets authority to go into the rooms. You might just do a written list and send it to the city so their city councils members can have it.
Understood.
Okay, thank you. Well, if there's no public comment and no requirements from the board, I would like to entertain a motion, please, on this item.
I will move this item, Madam Chair.
Motion by Supervisor Tofanelli, a second.
I'll second that motion, Madam Chair.
Second by Supervisor Garamendi. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Passes on a 5-0 vote of the board. Thank you. I'd like to move back to sort of having the clerk report out on the closed session from last week. And then we'll go into staff announcements.
Just one moment, Madam Chair. Okay.
Would you like us to come back to that?
You know, could you please? Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm not prepared.
No, that's all right. I want to move to staff announcements. Does staff have anything they would like to discuss or say? And then go to
I don't have any staff members wanting to make a staff announcement. I am prepared to do the report of closed session.
Okay, please.
Okay, so the report of closed session held on April 21st, 2020. Conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, one case pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2. There was no reportable action taken.
I'd like to move to the consent. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, to public comments. Are there any public comments, Madam Clerk?
Yeah. Any item of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board and is not posted on the consent or regular agendas may be addressed during the public comment period. California law prohibits the board from taking action on any matter which is not posted on the agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the Board of Supervisors. If public comment is completed before the 30-minute allotted time period, the board may immediately move to the next order of business. If public comment is not completed during the allotted time period, it will be continued as the last item of business in order to provide an opportunity for the remainder of comments to be heard. If you'd like to make a public comment for general public comment, you may call in at this time. The numbers are on the screen for you now. If we can wait just a moment, Madam Chair. There does not appear to be any callers, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to move then to the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, and could you talk about pulling item 12?
Yes, Madam Chair. Consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested party may request removal of an item from the consent agenda for later discussion. Madam Chair, I have 2 emails from departments.
Okay.
Item 7 is being pulled by the Sheriff's Department. They request that the board's approval to accept the augmentation of funds offered by DBW in the amount of $6,795.05 to the Marine Safety Grant Fund and requests an increase in revenue allocations and expenditure allocations, excuse me. The correct amount should read $3,589.61, which agrees to the supporting attachments, recommendation language, and discussion and summary. So basically there is a typo. So we'll need a separate action for that one. And then the other is item 12, which is the to authorize the board chair to execute a public facilities reimbursement agreement with John F. Couts for improvements associated with the Bret Harte Traffic Impact Mitigation Fee Program, to accept modifications to the required improvements on Bret Harte Drive and accept the Bret Harte Benefit Basin required improvements as complete and terminate the basin by rescinding Resolution 95-59 and its amendments. This item has been requested to be withdrawn from the department to facilitate their ability to do a little bit more outreach within the community and bring the item back at a later date.
I approve the pulling of this item. I've talked to Public Works, I've talked to Mr. Couts, and I have talked to the community. So this item, it will just be postponed till a later date.
It will just be withdrawn so that the department can make changes to it. There isn't any action required to withdraw it.
Okay, let's just take item 7.
Wait, we need to see if any board members or
Oh yeah, I keep forgetting my board members might want to talk. Do any of you want anything to say? I don't see your hand up. Okay.
Maria, I would like to pull item number 10, please.
Okay. Thank you, Supervisor. Thought I could get away with this. Okay, I didn't see a blue hand. Okay.
You don't notice those blue things anyway.
I know, true statement, true statement. Okay, any other item that my colleagues might like to pull? Are there any items on consent that the public or staff might like to pull?
We're not seeing any callers, Madam Chair.
May I have a motion on the balance of the consent agenda?
Madam Chair, so moved.
Motion by Supervisor Stopper.
I'll second.
Second by Supervisor Tuffanelli. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes on a 5-0. Item number 7. If we could have that approved as modified, as amended, excuse me, by the Sheriff's Office.
Madam Chair, I would like to move it as amended.
Okay, Mr. Stopper, thank you.
I would second it with public comment first, please.
Oh, really, Dennis? Why do I keep forgetting public comment? Okay, I'll take the second by Supervisor Mills, but I will not call for the vote yet. Is there any public comment on this item?
If you would like to make public comment, the number is available on the screen, either phone number, and then use the meeting ID and the password. Madam Chair, we don't appear to have any callers.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Stopper, did you want to make any comments?
No, other than moved as amended.
Oh, we did. I see your hand.
Oh, I forgot to lower it.
May I have a motion and I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes on a 5-0 vote of the board. We'll move to item 10. Supervisor Tuffanelli wanted to withdraw that item. Madam Clerk, did you want to read the item, please?
Sure. Item 10 is from Public Works to adopt the plans and specifications for construction of the Mountain Ranch Road Improvement Project, to authorize the Director of Public Works to incorporate any final changes into the bid documents before advertising for bids, subject to County Council approval, to the extent said changes affect any contractual terms or conditions, and authorize the Department of Public Works to solicit formal construction bids.
Supervisor Tuffanelli?
Yes, Madam Chair, I pulled this item because I just wanted to put a shout out to Josh and his whole crew. They've been working out around the roads lately. You see them all over the place during this time, and the crew inside. This particular project I pulled because it is a long-going project, as you know, Marita. This is a long time coming, and it needs to be done. And I'm very happy to see it moving forward. Although it's here in District 1, it's going to affect everybody coming up and down this road. So great job. Hopefully everything goes smoothly. With that, I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Supervisor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Supervisor Stopper. Any public comments on this?
The numbers for public comment are now on your screen, along with the meeting ID and the password. If you'd like to call in, please do so now. Madam Chair, there doesn't appear to be any callers at this time.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Passes on a 5-0 vote of the board. Thank you. Item 12. So I think we already read it, or is it that I've read it so much I know we've read it?
It was withdrawn by the department. There isn't any action required.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to move to regular agenda item 2.
Regular agenda part 2, item 20 is from Human Resources to adopt a adopt a resolution appointing Sarah Edwards Decay to the position of County Counsel for a 4-year term effective May 8th, 2020.
Okay. Good
morning.
Do any of the board members have any comment they would like to make on this at this time? Does the public have any comment they would like to make on this appointment at this time?
So the public comment phone numbers are listed on the screen with the ID and the password. If anyone would like to make public comment, please call in now. Madam Chair, there isn't any callers at this time.
All right. May I have a motion, please, to appoint Mr. K to the position of county council?
Supervisor Callaway,
Yes.
I would, prior to making a motion, which I will do, I would like to ask Sarah Decay if she has anything to say to start.
I was not planning on making remarks, but I am flattered and honored by the opportunity to continue serving the county in the capacity of county council. I have enjoyed serving in the role for the past few months and would just like to thank the board for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. K. Mr. Stopper?
With that, the capacity of county council, I suppose that I could make a motion to appoint Ms. Sarah Decay as council.
Thank you, Mr. Stopper. Do I have a second, please?
I will second.
Thank you, Supervisor Toffenelli. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Passes on a 5-0 vote of the board. Thank you, Mr. K, and welcome to becoming our official county council for 4 years.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I guess I should let the record know that it's county councils are under contract, and under government code, their term is for 4 years. Okay, I'd like to move to item 21.
Item 21 is from Public Works to introduce and waive the first reading of an amendment to the county encroachment ordinance and authorize the Department of Public Works to publish the changes made to the encroachment ordinance for public review. If you'd like to make public comment, now is the time to do that. Call in.
And while I'm waiting, I'm sorry, while I'm waiting for your calls, I'll just ask my colleagues if you have any questions on this item or comments. Okay. We'll wait to see if there's any public comment on this.
The numbers are on the screen for public comment call in. Madam Chair, I see that the Director of Public Works and staff are on the call. Did you want to, was there anything they'd like to add?
No, staff, is there any comments that you would want to make on this?
No, thank you, Supervisor Callaway and members of the board. No, I think it's pretty straightforward. This is an action being taken to clean up language in the municipal code in response to the recent adoption of the transfer restoration policy. And by the way, I'm here with Chantel Garvin, our public works analyst, who helped prepare, not only assisted me with the transfer restoration policy, but also helped do the ordinance. The ordinance was pretty quick. We actually found less inconsistencies than we anticipated. Code 12.08.350 was really the one place that was that had a clear conflict, and so it's just a little bit of cleanup language. And that's all I have. And again, I'm happy to answer. Chantel and I are happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, since we didn't hear from any of the other public utilities, I guess it's a go, right? Okay, I want to bring it back to the board to introduce it and waive reading. May I have a motion?
So moved, Garamendi.
I'll second, Toffenelli.
Oh God, you guys are doing my job for me. Thank you, gentlemen. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Passes on a 5-0 vote of the board. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go to item 22, which is a public hearing.
Madam Chair, I believe we're going to need to take a break to allow for the department and or the property owner to.
Got it. How much time would you like? 5 minutes, 10 minutes?
10 minutes would be absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, 10 minutes. Thank you.
Return at 11:30. Is that correct?
Okay. Mr.
11:30.
Garamendi, could I see you, please? Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Diane, is staff ready to proceed?
I can't. And Madam Chair, staff is ready. We're just getting rolling again.
Okay, in the interim, there are masks in the administrative office for all of you. You can have 3 each. They're not as pretty as the ones Diane and I've been wearing, but they are available for you.
Okay, so we're ready.
We're ready.
Okay, we're ready, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. We're going to be opening this as a public hearing. Madam Clerk, could you please read the item?
Item 22 is from the Planning Department to conduct a public hearing, adopt a negative declaration, and adopt an ordinance amending the zoning of APN 021-004-078 from rural residential to residential agriculture for Richard Ducharme, authorize publication of a brief description and a map of reclassified property. If you'd like to make a public comment, you can start calling in now using the numbers that we previously showed on the screen, and you will be muted until public comment is opened.
Thank you. I am opening the public comment now, and I will turn it over for a staff presentation and any board questions of staff. Mr. Maurer?
Yes, good morning. Peter Maurer, Planning Department. With me is Madeline Flandreau, the project planner on it. We have a short PowerPoint presentation we'd like to present to you as we go over the details of this application.
Okay, thank you.
So we'll go ahead and start that now.
Madam Chair, point of order.
Yes, Mr. Mills.
Don't we have to declare the public hearing open?
I did.
I believe, sorry to interrupt. I believe that you may have misspoken slightly, Madam Chair. You said you were opening public comment. Supervisor Mills is correct. Just as a point of technicality, it's opening the public hearing.
Got it. Whatever Dennis said, it's fine with me. Okay. God, Dennis. Okay. We're doing that. What Dennis said is what we're doing. We're opening the public hearing. I've turned it over to Mr. Maurer, and Mr. Maurer has the slide presentation open. Okay, are we now back to where we should be?
Yes.
Please, thank you. Please proceed, Mr. Maurer.
Thank you. You can all hear me?
Oh, yes, thank you. Sorry.
No, not at all. Madeline Flandreau, Planner 2. I'm presenting project number 2019-077, the zoning amendment for Richard Ducharme. The applicant is requesting approval of a zoning amendment from rural residential with a 20-acre minimum to residential agriculture with a 20-acre minimum for a 34-acre parcel in Mountain Ranch. The parcel is developed with a single-family residence and former commercial cannabis cultivation site. And the purpose of the rezone is for the applicant to continue to use the land for commercial cannabis cultivation under the new regulatory ordinance, as the RR zone is not included as an allowed zoning classification under the ordinance. The subject parcel, APN 021-004-078, is located at 6640 Railroad Flat Road in Mountain Ranch. This aerial is county imagery from 2018, showing the location of the residence in the former cultivation site located in the southern portion of the parcel. And as you can see, the lines are a little bit stretched. Hopefully you can make out where the actual fence is, just south of the red line, which shows the line is sort of crossing the cultivation area, but the residence in the cultivation area is just above that fence line. This parcel is located in an area that was burned in the Butte Fire, with parcels ranging in size from 5 to 40 acres, many of which are vacant, although there are some scattered residences, and several of which contain former cannabis cultivation sites. This is parcel map number 899, which was recorded in 1979. That subdivided an 86-acre parcel into 4 parcels. Parcel A is 42 acres, parcel B, which is the subject parcel, is 34 acres, and parcel C and D, which are in the lower right-hand side, are both 5 acres. This parcel map was approved concurrently with the zoning amendment, which rezoned the parcels from unclassified to RR5 and RR20. The parcel is designated by the general plan as working lands, which is identified here in lime green. This designation identifies lands suitable for agriculture and forestry practices on parcels with a density of 20 to 40 acres per lot, which and includes lands with a combination of residential and home-based businesses. These lands allow for the continuation of small-scale resource production and other rural home-based business operations that are compatible with rural residential development. Typical uses include small-scale agriculture, forestry, timber production and harvesting, mineral extraction, small-scale commercial or industrial uses secondary to the principal residence. The RR zone is intended to provide lands for personal ranches in which residential use is the primary land use, and is established to permit small-scale farming primarily for personal use and not as the primary use of the property. Whereas the RA zone is a resource zone, which is intended to be a district in which equal emphasis is assigned to residential and agricultural uses. Both the RA and RR zoning designations are compatible in the working lands designation. Therefore, the request to rezone the property is consistent with the land use designation. Sorry. Didn't mean to do that. The RR and RA classifications also differ in their residential densities as stated in Title 17, with the RR zone allowing for lower densities than the RA zone. For example, the minimum density for the RR zone is 1 acre, whereas the minimum density for RA is 5 acres. Although there are exceptions, typically large parcels such as the subject parcel are zoned RA, GF, or A1. Amending the zoning of the subject property to RA will not increase the residential density on the property, but rather increase the agricultural viability of the land. Although the additional permitted uses allowed in the RA zone, which are not allowed in RR, include a variety of agricultural uses and services, retail trade, and recreational and educational uses, the additional uses would be limited by the residence, the topography of the parcel, and the access easement. One of the goals of the general plan, LU-2, is to provide a land use pattern that allows those who own, operate, or manage the productive resources in the county to maintain open space, wildlife habitat, and agricultural lands. Therefore, encouraging larger parcels to have agricultural uses allows more opportunity to use and maintain the land. Also, general plan goal LU-5 is for the county to have a strong and diversified economic base through creation, retention, expansion, and attraction of business, agriculture, and industry. Rezoning to RA, a resource zone, gives the ability for the parcel to be more economically viable than one with an RR zone designation, which provides little economic benefit to the county due to its limited agricultural resources. This area of Mountain Ranch is primarily classified as, it is primarily zoned unclassified, which is depicted here in light blue. The county is in the process of reviewing all parcels which are classified as U, which is an interim zone, in order to rezone them to classification, which is consistent with the 2019 general plan. This slide shows the land use designations and acreage of the surrounding parcels, those designated as working lands shown in lime green. are proposed to be rezoned to A1. The parcels designated as rural transition B, which are depicted in blue, which are 10 acres or greater, will be rezoned to RA, and parcels less than 10 acres would be rezoned to RR. Therefore, the zoning amendment would not conflict with the future surrounding zoning classifications. A negative declaration was prepared and circulated for 30 days from January 7th, 2020 to February 7th, 2020. This negative declaration is focused on the non-cannabis cultivation related impacts associated with the proposed zoning amendment, as staff is relying on the program EIR and addendum prepared for the cannabis ordinance for the proposed future cannabis use on the subject parcel. The negative declaration did not reveal any significant impacts, and no comment letters were received. At the Planning Commission hearing on February 27th, 2020, the commissioners requested additional documentation to supplement the negative declaration, just to clarify that staff is relying on the program EIR and addendum, and continued the item to March 26th, during which the commission recommended 3-2 that the board approve the zoning amendment. This zoning amendment application is considered a later activity as described in section 15168 of the CEQA guidelines. It is within the scope of the EIR and its addendum because the ordinance limits the total number of commercial cannabis cultivation sites within the county without identifying specific locations on which they may occur, and it specifically authorized the potential rezoning of parcels to accommodate the relocation or reactivation of cultivation sites. As such, there are no substantial changes or new information of substantial importance that would require a subsequent EIR pursuant to section 15162 of the CEQA guidelines. As the cannabis ordinance anticipated rezones, the negative declaration appropriately relied on the analysis in the EIR and the addendum for the cannabis ordinance for consideration of impacts associated with cannabis cultivation that would be permitted as a result of this zoning amendment. The number of cultivation permit applications that will be accepted by the county is limited to the number of growers who previously registered under the urgency ordinance program, had not withdrawn that registration or had it denied, and had either received a state license or had a state license application submitted and in process before being halted when the previous countywide ban went into effect. The applicant meets this criteria and the parcel meets the acreage requirements of the ordinance. The intention of this application is to help the applicant and his premises qualify for a cannabis cultivation permit under Chapter 1795. Although approval of this zoning amendment does not guarantee that the applicant will qualify for a commercial cannabis cultivation permit, and he would still be subject to all the regulations and restrictions imposed by state and local cannabis cultivation laws, as well as any site-specific conditions imposed by the state on his cannabis cultivation license. Approval of this zoning amendment will not increase the total number of permits issued in the ordinance. And the applicant does have the ability to relocate and establish a new cultivation site. However, the applicant has chosen to reactivate the previous site at the subject parcel, therefore substantially lessening impacts. So to conclude, the proposal is to rezone from RR20 to RA20. The purpose of reactivating a prior cannabis cultivation operation that was permitted under the provisions of the urgency ordinance in effect from 2016 to 2018. The RA zone is consistent with the Working Lands General Plan land use designation and will not conflict with the future surrounding zoning classifications. The parcel is 34 acres, which meets the minimum parcel size requirement of 5 acres in the RA zone. A zoning amendment to allow the applicant the possibility of reacting the previous commercial cannabis cultivation site is consistent with Chapter 1795 and is consistent with the current general plan, which encourages larger parcels to have agricultural uses, allowing more opportunity to use and maintain the land, and all required findings for the zoning amendment can be made. And that is all I have. And I believe the applicant is ready. He has called in and he's here if you have questions for him.
I am here. Thank you.
Are there any comments that you would like to make?
All I'd like to, I think the planning department did a fantastic job there, basically presenting everything. All that I would add to that is that I believe we were model licensed cultivators prior to the ban. And all that we're asking to do is to continue to be able to be those model licensed cultivators in the area and be good stewards of our land as well as our neighbors. Our alternative to being able to cultivate there would be potentially moving the cultivation as the ordinance allows, which I believe would be more detrimental to the community and the environmental impact that would put to it versus something we've already put our blood, sweat, and tears and all of our money into in developing prior to this. So all we ask is for that opportunity to continue to do so. Outside of that, again, I think the planning department's done an excellent job presenting everything as it relates to our property and what we're trying to do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions of the board at the moment? Otherwise, I'm sorry. Mr. Mauer, did you have something to say?
No, I did not.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood. Otherwise, I'm going to go to any presentations by members of the public on this item.
Madam Chair, we don't appear to have any callers.
Okay, thank you. I have a question. If the applicant or the property owner chooses to go to put in olive trees or an almond orchard or grapes, they, as again, requiring under RA zoning, would they be also going through the same process?
So the difference between the RR and the RA zoning is a matter of degree. The cultivation of orchard crops or vineyard is allowed in the RR zone, but some of the marketing activities associated with, say, a vineyard or winery is not permitted or requires a higher level of discretionary permitting, like a conditional use permit in the RR zone, while it's allowed by right in the RA zone. So they could plant an orchard or a vineyard or do other agricultural crops in the RR zone, although the intent of the zone is still primarily for residential use. It does allow agricultural use as well. And that's one of the conflicts. We've had a discussion before where the intent of the zone says one thing, but the permitted uses allow a broader range than the actual intent states. And so that's why, again, we and the Planning Commission have recommended approval of this, in that this is more in line with the agricultural intent of the working lands land use designation.
So if I wanted to commercially grow a vineyard or commercially grow olive trees, I would still be going through the same process from RR to RA.
You could commercially grow the grapes or olives, but you couldn't market them directly from the property, or you couldn't do some of the other processing and packing facilities that would be allowed in the RA zone. But the vineyard or the orchard itself would be permitted.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Board members, before I give it back to the appellant, do you have any questions or comments at this point? No. Madam Clerk, there's no phone calls coming in? No.
No, there does not appear to be any phone calls, although it looks like Supervisor Mills has his hand raised.
Oh, he does. Thank you. Supervisor Mills.
Thank you. The question I would have for Peter or Madeline is, obviously there was a 3-2 vote by our planning commission. Can you give us the statement of what their objections were, those that voted against this?
The two that voted against this did not feel that the addendum to the EIR adequately addressed the impacts associated with the ordinance, and therefore relying on that was inadequate for the purpose of this rezone, in a nutshell.
Did any of them bring up the significant and unavoidable impacts of odors?
Yes, that was certainly something that was discussed. There was a concern that the location of the prior cultivation site was near the boundaries of the 5-acre parcels, to the southeast. The majority of the commission found that because the property owner, the adjacent property owner supported this zoning amendment, that would not be considered an adverse impact on those property owners. But yes, the odors are potential. It was found to be significant and unavoidable with any potential cultivation.
That's on page 530 of our report, of our agenda packet. Was anything discussed about PR 4290, fire access, fire remediation issues?
It wasn't discussed directly. Any permitting, I think Madeline went into this previously, that they will need to comply with all requirements of the ordinance, including any building permits that might be necessary for the activities, in which case they would need to meet the fire safe standards.
Did anyone bring up the number of RR or smaller parcels that are surrounding these two larger parcels right here? I know
Yes,
one of them isn't in the discussion.
At the distribution of parcels and parcel sizes around it, there are a number of smaller parcels, 5-acre parcels nearby. This is not atypical for much of District 2. You have a very large checkerboard pattern of plotting of lot sizes throughout that part of the county.
Okay. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. I'd like to bring it back to the appellate.
Marita, there's like there's three hands up right now.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Tuffanelli, please go ahead.
Well, I think Supervisor Stopper had his hand first, then I, and then Jack. So why don't you start with Ben?
Gosh, what gentlemen you all are. Mr. Stopper.
Thank you, Supervisor Toffanelli. Madeline, Peter, thank you for the report. I think there's some things you said in here. This is fairly consistent with the land uses within the area. The LU2 that you brought up with open space and how it's changed promotes more open space to RA. And then LU5, it provides the ability for more economic viability, which is crucial. And that's something that I clearly support, no matter what type of use is used across, is used within the county, as long as it's done in a good way, neighborly, that we know we need to support more economic viability within Calaveras County. Now, if this applicant weren't to put the question of commercial cultivation into this equation, in which they don't even have to necessarily state with their application for the zoning amendment, this would be consistent with the general plan that's put forward right now, in the sense that you very well could declare a negative declaration for this type of zoning amendment. Am I correct, Mr. Moore?
Yes, I mean, we looked at both, because the applicant had clearly indicated his intent to reactivate his cultivation site if the zoning amendment is approved. we looked at that, but we also looked at the other components of the RA zone and what would be allowed there, and looked at the potential environmental impacts of that. And so, yes, we looked at both the cannabis cultivation as well as other agricultural activities that could be done on that site.
Excellent. Thank you. Enough for now.
Mr. Toffanelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Peter, I have a couple of questions. One is this applicant in progress right now of obtaining a permit to grow?
He has not applied yet because he is unable to because of the zoning. He needs to wait until this is approved, but he intends to submit an application, yes.
Okay, he intends to, but he hasn't yet because the parcel did not fit within that code.
Right.
Yeah, I'm one of my comments was what Supervisor Stopper was saying. If it fits, if he doesn't need, it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to get an application and start growing, but he's entitled to change his designation on his property if it fits within the general plan and is accepted. So I don't think any way I would be opposed to him changing the designation. He still has to go through that process of getting a permit, and it also, depending on what's happening here and from what I'm seeing, what you showed, the existing growth that he has is going to have to be moved because it won't conform distance-wise from property lines under the new code. So he still may have to, and maybe you can answer that, but he still may have to, depending on what he does and permits that he pulls, if he wants to do any grading or building or anything else, have to go through CEQA to get to where he wants to go with his growth.
No, there would be no further CEQA analysis because the program EIR addressed all of that. The permit process is a ministerial process that if they meet the standards, those standards were the mitigation measures identified in the ordinance EIR. So he would need to meet all of those requirements of fire safety, setbacks, all the others, requirements of the ordinance, but there would be no further CEQA analysis of the cannabis cultivation permit itself because that is a ministerial permit.
Does the current site where he was growing prior under the urgency ordinance, the setback on it, just looking what you showed on the map is very difficult to tell, but it shows like it was right by the property line. Yeah, does it fit within the realm of the 200 feet or 600 feet or whatever it is under the RA zoning? And I saw 5-acre parcels next to it. So is all that fit?
Yes, he would need to meet the greater setback for adjacent to smaller RR zoned parcels. Unfortunately, our GIS property boundary layer isn't necessarily the most accurate, but he would have to meet that. Sometimes it shows it's not really in location where it looks like it's on the aerial image. So it's a little misleading in that, but that's the best that we have to sort of depict where the property is. We found that in some cases it's several hundred feet off when we were looking at some of those earlier appeals of cannabis cultivation permits from the prior round. But it's close to meeting the requirements. If he can't meet it, then he'll need to adjust to some degree to make that.
So that was a 1/2-acre grow under the urgency ordinance. Now it's up to a 1-acre grow. So obviously he's going to increase the size of the grow that he had there. And if that incorporates having to get a grading permit to grade more than 50 cubic yards, would that entail a separate CEQA? Or you're telling me he can go through that whole process and he's done with CEQA through this negative declaration and the CEQA that was performed for the ordinance in cannabis growing?
So if he can meet the standards, he would still need to get whatever permits are necessary, whether it's the permit, the water board permit, building permits for any hoop houses or anything like that. But you're correct. Or what I've said is you've confirmed what I said, that the issuance of a cultivation permit under the new ordinance does not require any further CEQA analysis.
That's all I have for right now. Thank you.
Mr. Garamendi.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. This is an application that we would treat just like any other application. Anybody could ask to get their property rezoned. He does not, it's cannabis agnostic. Now, the next phase of his application is not cannabis agnostic. So, if we bring it back to the chair, back to the board, Madam Chair, I'm ready to make a motion.
I still have a couple of more things I need to do first, Mr. Garamendi. Mr. Ducharme, is there anything else you would like to say?
Yeah, I was just going to add a couple more things. One is Mr. Maurer pointed out there, the overhead for the assessor's parcel map there is off. The actual lines we have account for the setbacks that we need to have from our neighbors. Additionally, some of the setback did remove a small portion of the garden from my measurements, which we have taken out, and we will not be running that as it relates to the regulations and those setbacks. So that has been addressed and accounted for. Additionally, we are only applying for the 22,000 square foot canopy versus the full acre, as I believe one of the supervisors mentioned there. So we are not intending on expanding the footprint or doing any more negligent harm to the surrounding land there. We're going to operate as is and basically address it in the future should we need to. But right now we're comfortable with just trying to be able to operate with what we previously had. Getting that re-registered and licensed again.
Okay, thank you very much. Does staff have any closing comments they would like to make?
No, thank you.
Was that a no?
That was no.
Then no's a no. Okay, thank you. Do any members of the public have anything they'd like to say on what has already been mentioned?
Madam Chair, are you calling for public comment again?
Yeah, they're allowed to do a rebut. I didn't vote for this when
This
it came
is not an
before.
appeal hearing, Madam Chair. This is a public hearing.
Oh,
It's a different process.
got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's a good thing you're there to keep me in line. You and Mr. Mills. Okay, if there's no board discussion, I am going to close the public hearing. I have a motion by Supervisor Garamendi. Do I have a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
So motion by a second by Supervisor Stopper. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose?
No.
On a 4-1 with Supervisor Mills oppose. This public hearing is closed and the rezone is allowed. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, staff. I'd like to move to item 23. This also is a public hearing. Madam Clerk.
Okay. Item 23 is from the Administrative Office to conduct a public hearing and adopt a resolution making energy cost savings findings required by Government Code Section 4217.10 at C to dispense with formal bidding requirements in connection with the HVAC replacement project and authorize the board chair to execute an energy services agreement in the amount of $2,889,641 with Compass Energy Solutions, Inc.
Thank you. I'm not going to open the public hearing. Is there a staff presentation? Who'll be making the presentation on behalf of staff?
Madam Chair, I will.
I'm sorry, you need to open the public hearing.
I did.
Oh, I thought you said you did not. You were not
Oh,
going
no,
to.
no, no.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I just wanted to I wanted Dennis to know that I said the right words. Mr. Alt, could you please proceed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A good afternoon, I think, supervisors and public. So this item is before the board, as it's been several times in the past few months. As the board is aware, it's a longstanding priority for the Board of Supervisors dating back to 2015 that you've been discussing this project. In staff reports on April 10th, 2018 and March 26, 2019, the board ultimately took action to adopt HVAC as a priority, and then again confirmed this in my goals in 2019. So in July 2019, pursuant to my goals being approved, I started bringing this project forward under Government Code 4217. I began the process by having a feasibility study completed, which also helped establish the energy cost savings that are necessary for a project to be done under Government Code 4217. The feasibility study has been presented to the facilities ad hoc several times, as well as the energy cost savings. The facilities ad hoc committee has reviewed the project and energy savings calculations in detail, and have recommended that the board make findings supporting the energy cost savings and the public benefit to the project. It's necessary for the board to take action to make these findings. And it should be noted that along with making these findings, it's necessary under the code that I've cited a few times here, that we also notice the public hearing, which was done on April 6th by posting at the Government Center on the county website, and published in the Valley Springs News on April 8th and April 10th. Before the board today is the resolution that ultimately asks the board to make the necessary findings of the energy cost savings, which are noted in the staff report, and ultimately the public benefit that's been discussed many times of having removed the R22 from the units that are in this project. The contract that's also with this resolution is for Compass Energy Solutions to implement the project. It's important to note that this contract, while it's ultimately approximately $2.9 million contract, it has been split into 2 stages. The first stage will be $400,000 that's budgeted in the current year budget. And the second stage is ultimately dependent upon the financing that we're working on. So if for some reason the board doesn't like the financing terms, or the financing doesn't go through because of the state of the market or whatnot, then we would be compelled to continue on the project. This concept was brought forward to the ad hoc at our last ad hoc meeting, and the notion of splitting the contract in this way was approved by the ad hoc committee before bringing it to this point. With that, I'll leave it to questions about the project.
Do any of the board members have any questions or comments on this item that we've discussed quite a few times? I'd like to, Mr. Mills.
First would be that we have the cost is based on increases in CPPA power, but we haven't seen any real increases in CPPA power for a number of years. How do we justify that?
Well, so the statement that it's based on increases isn't accurate at this point. I haven't updated that data. The ad hoc has seen it, and they have seen the increases, but this particular data was based on current existing year pricing. So it's quite conservative. What you're speaking to that has gone to the ad hoc committee at this point does include increases, and I got the information directly from Dennis Dickman and his projection of rates, as well as analyzing the cost escalation that has happened over the last decade with the Power Authority. There has been cost escalation over the entire life of our arrangement with the Power Authority that averages about 3% per year.
Knowing very well that we could experience a substantial decrease in funding capacity over this next budget cycle, is it really, has the Debt Advisory Committee and everybody else really fully vetted out the concept of going into this level of debt, knowing the uncertainty of our funding in the future?
Well, so I appreciate that question, but I should probably help clarify that this isn't asking to approve the funding at this point in time. This is to approve the procurement method that requires that we establish that there's energy savings, which is in the resolution, and then a contract to procure the project. But the project has been split into two pieces. In the contract, we're only compelled to do that which has already been budgeted in the budget of $400,000. The financing yet hasn't been approved. We're still in that process. The Debt Advisory Committee has approved it and recommended moving it forward. So we're in the process of completing that. But to actually get the financing approved at the board level, we would have to go through a similar process like this. It does require that we make an additional finding under 4217.13 of energy savings over the life of the project. And then we will also have the terms on the financing. So this really only commits us to that which we've already budgeted for and making the findings that's necessary to use the procurement method that we're using.
Okay, that's all the questions I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tuffanelli?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Al, I'm looking at Compass's schedule of payments chart that's on page 627 of our packet. And it's the only place that I could find that even comes somewhat near it, and it really doesn't come somewhat near at all of what exactly we are getting for the $400,000. I see that we initially got to give them $95,000 to mobilize, but I have no idea what they're getting $95,000 to mobilize for. What does mobilization mean? It could be they drove their trucks here. Okay, we mobilized. We want 95 grand. Then apparently only $285,000 is actually going to be spent on the units themselves and installing them. So I need a little bit more information to go forward on the first part of the stage one that we already have budgeted. And then I have concerns on the stage two, which in my opinion, and just the way things are going, I would like to put off till after the new budget is adopted, so we know exactly where we're at. I'm looking at our midterm that you presented to us back in February. And I have budgeted versus actual revenues, and our revenues at that time at the end of December 31st, we were only at 37.7. Now we've experienced what the shutdown and everything for the last month. And from what Dr. Colada says, it could be another month or maybe even longer before we start getting back up. We're right in we're going to start into the tourist. We're heading right into the tourist part of the year. So my concerns are possibly pushing that 2.499 million decision off until after the first of the year. But I still need the information for the initial 400,000 that we do have plugged in for this year, and how it's being spent, because it doesn't say here.
So the way we're spending the money is outlined in the scope of work. And if, okay, so it's outlined in the scope of work, and that was the scope of the work that we were originally bringing forward. This, if you recall, the ad hoc only approved this concept, what was it? I think 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. So in schedule, I think it's Schedule F, Compass has to develop a plan for that first stage that we approve of. So we're actually in the process of establishing what will go in that first phase, which also includes the 2 units in the cat house that we brought forward several times. So what we try to do is accommodate a few things. One is the concerns over the financing. 2 is the fact that this project has taken way too long to bring to fruition and get some of the units now rather than just put off the procurement on some of the larger units while we're installing some of the smaller kind of off the shelf units. Now we're having to repackage this and go back and prioritize very specific units with them and rearrange how we're going to actually procure this because we asked to split the contract so we could get the cat house and the other priorities done. Our other option was just to do nothing and leave the project in whole setting, which is what we discussed at the ad hoc.
We did, but again, I'm going back to your scope of work. It does not say stage 1 will do this, stage 2 will do that. It's the entire project, the scope of work. So again, I'm asking, it doesn't specifically state what I'm getting for the initial $400,000 before we move on. And nowhere that I could find, but I could be wrong, you could point out to me in the scope of work or anywhere else in this documents that were provided, exactly what the first stage is. What are you going to do for the first stage for us?
So I'll repeat that. It's in attachment F, and what we have is an agreement that before we start, that we have to develop a mutually agreed upon set of projects. And the reason why we don't have all of the projects lined out is because we've had to revamp everything that we're doing by having to split this contract up and get some things moving forward. So you're correct, all the detail isn't there, but they're contractually obligated to develop that in such a way that we agree to it before they can start expending the money on it.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions from the board? Are there any public comments on this item?
Madam Chair, we have the phone numbers for public comment on the screen along with the meeting ID and the password.
Thank you.
If we can wait just a moment to see if anyone calls in, I would appreciate it. Madam Chair, there does not appear to be any callers at this time.
Are there any further comments by the board?
Yes, I have a couple.
Go ahead, Mr. Topanelli.
Al, is there any way we can separate these two out and go forward with the initial contract separately for the $400,000? And then once we get funding, the 2.4, if the board so chooses to go forward with that as a separate?
I suppose, yeah, we could. We're kind of in the 11th hour. Compass did the feasibility study with the understanding that they were going to have the whole package. Really, frankly, the work that they do doing 4217 projects is really valued on being able to have the economy of scale. So they may be willing to do it. We haven't confronted that with them yet. Once we came up with the idea of this and I brought that to the ad hoc, this is what we moved forward with. I don't know if they're actually interested in doing the smaller project. That certainly would be up to them, and I could go back to them about that, but I hadn't contemplated that with them yet.
Well, they're agreeing to it by stages. If we don't get funding for the second stage, they've only done stage 1.
That's true, but we're also in the process of securing the funding. They're taking a risk on us that when we secure the funding that they're anticipating that we may be able to move forward with it. If we weren't already where we're at in the funding, they weren't willing to do what they're doing here. Had I asked them to split the contract prior to the board voting to move the funding forward, and then the ad hoc agreeing to move forward the way they have, they likely wouldn't have agreed to splitting it the way that they did.
Thank you.
I'm going to support this. This has been discussed by the board, whoever the board was, since 2015, if I've heard this correctly. Since I've been back on the board, we've had many discussions about this. I understand Mr. Tuffanelli's concern about finances as we move forward into the next budget cycle. But I think we've sort of beaten this up enough. I don't want us to miss an opportunity now for the fundings, the interest rates that are out there, and then in waiting until the first of the year to say, oh, why didn't we do it? I'm done. The government center needs this done, and it's something that I think that we have to commit to. And I'm tired. It's been to ad hoc innumerable times. It's been to the board innumerable times. For me, it's time that we just make a decision and move on. Mr. Garamendi.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I think the bottom line to me is that we're going to use half the energy on this campus, and we're going to save over $100,000 a year in operating costs, flat. So with that, I'd make a motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Garamendi, but Mr. Mills wants to make a comment.
Yes, knowing that we have the $400,000 already budgeted to do part of the work, I could support the idea of doing that much. But until we can actually look at our next year's budget and know where we're going to be funding wise for next year and maybe some of the out years, I'm not prepared to support the whole package at this time.
Okay. Well, I have a motion by Supervisor Garamendi to move forward with item 1 and 2. Do I have a second? Mr. Stopper.
Ms. Callaway, board members, we've had on the books, like Ms. Callaway brought up, since 2015. There are multiple other capital assets that we're looking to move forward on that, you know, the county is consistently not followed through in a timely fashion. I think this has something to do with a little bit of public health and safety, which is a big thing and talk these days, as our employees will be affected as some of these units go down as they're over 40 years old. There is most definitely cost savings. I'm fully in favor of moving forward on some improving our capital assets, and we need to start taking steps and getting some of these projects done. So with that, I'll second it.
Thank you. Mr. Kay, before I take the vote.
Just a reminder, Madam Chair, to please close the public hearing prior to the board voting on this matter.
Oh, sure. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. Now I am going to say I have a motion by Supervisor Garamendi, a second by Supervisor Stopper. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
No.
Passes on a 3-2 vote of the board. Supervisor Tuffanelli and Supervisor Mills in the negative. Thank you. I'd like to move to item 24.
Madam Chair, are you not going to break for lunch? Is that your intention to just go through?
Yeah, just go through. We have one item, and
okay,
if I find it's
just
getting
wanted
up,
to make sure.
thanks. Didn't even know what time it was.
Okay, item 24 is from the Division of Cannabis Control to adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 9.22 of the Calaveras County Code of Ordinances, waive reading and authorize a summary publication of the ordinance, find the ordinance exempt from CEQA. If the public would like to call in, now is the time to start calling in, and you will be muted upon getting into the meeting. And then when it is your turn, you will be asked to make your comment.
Thank you. Okay, is there any staff comments on item 24? Mr. Alt or Mr. Whalen?
Greg was going to speak to this item.
Yeah. Hi, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Greg Whalen, Director of the Division of Cannabis Control. The item before the board today is an ordinance to amend 922. The item was introduced on April 14th. We're bringing it back today for the amendments that were proposed are to 3 sections of Chapter 922, including section 00, amending the definition of owner, that's at subdivision K, and the definition of satisfactorily passed, which is at subdivision M. With respect to 030, we're proposing striking subdivision A and renumbering, and 040 changes to allow the criminal background checks through third-party contractors. The primary effects of these amendments are going to be to require or maintain rather that we require every owner and worker present on a cannabis site to have a valid CBCB present at all times, but permit the CBCB, permit the owner to obtain a permit without a CBCB if I'm understanding that there's a difficulty hearing my audio.
Can anybody hear him?
Yeah, Mr. Whalen, is there a way you could just call in and we don't have to look at you?
Let me try that.
Your bandwidth is low, is what's going on.
Yeah, we all saw that. That's why I said he should call.
He can move to a better spot.
All right, does the audio work better now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, let me just start from the top then. The item before the board today is the amendments to Chapter 922. We're proposing an ordinance to amend Chapter 922. This ordinance was introduced on April 14th and the board discussed the proposed amendments. Those amendments have to do with 3 subsections of Chapter 922, including 020 by amending subdivision K and the definition of owner to match the Business and Professions Code definition utilized by the state, amending subdivision M to change the definition of satisfactorily passed so that it means in the case of owners that they have passed the state's background process. And then in 030, striking subdivision A and renumbering, which will effectively enable a permit to be issued if there is a situation where there's an owner who will never be present on the property. They will not have to have a CBCB for the permit to be issued. But if they're ever going to be present on the property, they will be required to have the CBCB. And then the last part is changes to 040 that allow the criminal background checks to be done through third-party contractors, particularly for workers. The primary effects, again, of this is that we're still requiring all owners and workers present on a cannabis site to have a valid and current CBCB, but allowing a permit without a CBCB if an owner is not going to be present on the property. Where owners have passed their Interpol, FBI, and Cal DOJ background checks, the DCC can rely on the CDFA background clearance for purposes of issuance of the permit or if the owner is ever going to be present, the CBCB. And then the last part would grant the CBCB, the DCC, the ability to utilize a third-party contractor to run background checks. And subject to any questions or comments, the recommendation of the Division of Cannabis Control is that the board adopt the proposed amendments to Chapter 922 as presented.
Board members, do you have any questions or comments you'd like to make to Mr. Whalen at this time? Mr. Mills.
Yeah, Mr. Whalen, on 030A, we're talking about basically not looking at anyone who is an owner that we don't really care what their background is as long as they don't set foot in Calaveras County. Is that correct?
I think that generally speaking, that is correct, except that we do care about the background in that they are still passing their Cal licensing background, which is a robust Interpol, FBI, and Cal DOJ background. But I think you're correct. If they're ever going to be on the property, those provisions are still in 922 and other chapters. So, and they're enforceable under subdivision 080, in which case they can be penalized if there were ever a violation. So everyone who's on a cannabis site, it has to have their CBCB, Mr. Mills.
So at some point in the future, should there be a reason to have a check or review again of their background and they fail, how is that going to affect the entire permit for that grow site?
Well, my understanding from Cal DOJ is that, for their licensing purposes, that they on an ongoing basis, they monitor the criminal history of their licensees, and that's a service that we can request. And that's also a purpose of our DOJ access that we've began to implement here. And generally speaking, in the situation where somebody, say an owner who's licensed with the state, if they have issues with their background check with them, then that would impact their license. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, it's more along the lines of, by the time that the state or we figure out that this person is no longer qualified to be a part of that permit, what happens if they are the only owner and suddenly that permit is not a valid permit anymore simply because they can't pass the background check?
Well, that would impact their permit. That would not only impact their license with the state, but by virtue of that, it would impact their permit with us. And it's difficult to address a hypothetical like that without having the facts and the exact situation in front of us to analyze. But generally speaking, if they have a license issue with the state, they have a permit issue with us.
Well, I remember the sheriff, and I'm going back a couple of years ago when he talked about straw men. And I just want to be sure that there is a way that we have already addressed that issue straight up so that we don't have that potential sitting out there surprising us later.
That's an excellent point, Mr. Mills. It's certainly always a concern of ours. There's a very broad definition of owner in both in the state licensing process and ours. If you look at the definition of 26001, it's very broad. So I think that the state licensing process as well as ours contemplate a situation like that, given that very broad definition. So, I think that we should be able to address a situation where there were perhaps straw men involved in the process because of that broad definition.
That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mills. Mr. Tuffanelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Greg, the subject of the owners, I understand all owners, at least the owners that are listed, even when they go to the state, they list these owners or the growers, they're going to be background checked there. I completely understand that. So we're not backgrounding somebody and saying you don't need a badge because you're not going to be here. My concern is without giving the owners one of our CBCB badges, how will we ever know if they did come to Calaveras County and they did go on that site? We have nobody monitoring those sites all the time. It's not like we're putting a county employee every day on that site and monitoring the people and their badges going in and out. So it's very possible that they could be skirting around our restrictions if they show up and they're on their site. They're the owner, but they don't have a CBCB badge. So I disagree with this on that point by itself. Just that they can show up. There's no boundaries for them that they can't. And we may never know whether they're there. The only chance would be is if for some reason one of our employees, code enforcement, happens to visit the site and an owner's there without a badge on because he never was required to get one at that time. That would be, and then it would be apparently a code violation. So I'm in favor of, if you're an owner, if you're part of this project at all, you need a CBCB badge, just so we have that under control. And then I see the language I'm disagreeing with on 9.22.040, the C, section C there. I totally, again, cannot support this based on that language. It's just opens up a lot of different things. When you start saying you can do, at his or her discretion, you can devise an alternative or additional method for criminal history review. I know it goes on and say entering the service third parties and blah, 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 but it says devise an alternate. It doesn't mean that it could be, I'm going to start doing it myself, or I'm going to have an employee start doing it. The language isn't there for me to be, to feel secure that at some point, somewhere down the line, that they devise something that's just not what we had in mind when we put this ordinance together.
So I understand those concerns, Gary. The subdivision C is addressed to the method. So this is a provision that grants us the ability to utilize these third-party contractors who this is their line of, this is what they do. And looking at the variety of databases that they check, it's a very thorough background check. That much, I think we're on this, I think that we both agree about that. But the provisions that deal with the substantive criteria that we would be reviewing from those results is all in the former sub D, proposed sub E. And so those are the criteria that we would be reviewing that data with an eye on. So if there were a non-conforming offense, then that's where that would come into play. And so I think the two, if I could submit, I think the two should be sort of viewed as addressing different components of the background check, the process or method of obtaining the data versus what we're checking it against, which is in that former D sub E proposed.
Then why not just state that? Why not just state that notwithstanding subsections A and B above, the CAO may enter into a third-party contract for background checks? Why not just leave it at that? It's not vague. It doesn't open it up to all kinds of different things that you can do because of the verbiage in this section. Why not just make that statement? And you and I have had this conversation, and I still don't have an answer that I can agree with why we have this vague language in here. Instead of just making a statement in it that you just said, he can go to third parties and leave it at that.
So it's my opinion, and it's of course I understand that there can be differing opinions on issues like this, but that the language of sub C is clear and workable for our purposes. And I do appreciate your views on that, but that's what our position is on that and why we're recommending that the board move forward with it.
Thank you. That's all the questions I have.
Are there any other questions? Mr. Garamendi? Yes. Mr. Garamendi.
Madam Chair, sorry about that. I'm ready to make a motion.
All right, if there's no further, I have to open it up to the public. Is there any public comment on this item?
Madam Chair, we're putting the number on the screen now that the public can use to call in and make a comment along with the meeting ID and the password. Madam Chair, there does not appear to be any callers at this time.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to bring it back to the board if there's no other comments from Mr. Stopper. Did you have a comment?
No comment, Ms. Calloway. I was just
waving
waiting
hello. Thank you. I have a motion by Supervisor Garamendi. Do I have a second?
I'll move forward on a second. I think this will help facilitate some of the process moving forward. The background check's still done by the state, which is a very comprehensive process through the Justice Department. So at no time are these applicants getting around having to do a background check. Things, you know, and if they do at some point lose their ability to pass a background check, which gets called out, that at that time the process would be to revoke their permit if they're the sole owner, and at that time they would have a serious loss in investment. So I think it would be prudent for everyone to keep their nose clean. So with that, I'll have a second.
Motion by Supervisor Garamendi, a second by Supervisor Stopper. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Passes on a 3-2 vote of the board with Supervisor Mills and Tuffanelli in the negative. Okay, thank you. I want to move on. I know you all are probably getting a little hungry, but we're on the downside. I'd like to move to any supervisor announcements. Mr. Mills.
Yes, I have two. For those that applied for SBA loans and did not receive funds in the first round, in the next round, those applications will still be there, and they will be the first for processing in the new round for SBA loans. So don't give up and do not reapply if you did not get your funds in the first round. Secondly, the Copperopolis Post Office, as many know, will be moving to Town Square. And we did get a notification of an estimated completion date of that move for July 1 of 2020. So the post office has made the announcement. And thank you, Diane, for forwarding the notice to me on it. If anybody has any questions on it, they need to contact the U.S. Postal Service, and I've got the information available. That's all I have.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments or supervisor comments? I have one. I'm seeking your support to do a fee waiver or a fee reduction at Red Hill for those people living in Dorrington, the Camp Connell area. When the order for the virus and the stay-at-home order came out, we also had a severe snowstorm up in that area. There were over 375 trees that fell into the county right-of-way that the county still removing the slash. PG&E had probably about 80 or 90 poles broken. The people up there were out of power for a week. So none of them, they couldn't get out. They were out of power. And they have huge amounts of trees down and slash on private property, which as we're moving towards the June 1st 4290 deadline, I would like to be able to offer to those people through, let's say, a property tax bill. I could work out the details with staff, the ability for them to dispose of their yard waste at Red Hill with a waiver of the fee. I don't ask this normally. Usually we grant it when it is something like we did for the Veterans Hall, or maybe like we might have done for Habitat. But this was sort of the Katrina of Calaveras County at the time. And I'd like to be able to help them have a place to dump it. We're talking about a huge amount of yard waste and trees down. So if you all would be somewhat supportive of that, I will bring the item back at our next agenda for a formal fee waiver. Mr. Mills.
Would you like to poll the board for that, Madam Chair?
No, I'd just like you all to give me chocolate and tell me you'll vote for it.
It's in my drawer.
Well,
the only concern that I have, without getting into discussion, and hopefully any other supervisor won't say anything, is to be sure that we coordinate well with the Red Hill site so that we don't overwhelm them, and that we get the tub grinder over there in advance, that kind of thing. So there you have some discussion with them.
Good point. Thank you.
Okay?
I don't know if I'm legally allowed to poll you for that. I'm not heck with it. Mr. Stopper. Sarah, what?
I was just going to suggest that we agendize this for our next meeting, Madam Chair.
Right, but I don't want to put it on the agenda if I don't think I have board support, which is why I'm bringing it up.
But let's discuss. We can discuss and then make that happen for a subsequent meeting. I will be happy to work with you on that.
If you would like to just wave your hand. All right, Mr. Garamendi.
I just want to say the Katrina of Calaveras was the Butte fire. And then we all suffered in 17 and 18 and 19 from storms. So I'm sorry that Ebbets Pass isn't that special. I'm sure everybody thinks they are, but we've got a lot of places in the county that have needs.
I know.
Which brings me to the point, why are we doing it for just one specific area if we don't blanket the whole county in the same way? But that's for further discussion at another time. And I think that needs to be part of it. That's all.
And it can be. Thank you.
See you, Sarah.
God, Sarah. Okay.
Sarah,
So,
you need, Sarah needs a stop sign. You need a stop sign. Yeah, there you go.
She's now permanent, so she could
Mr.
do
Ault,
that.
do you have
A
anything?
stopper sign.
Mr. Ault, do you have anything?
I do not.
Mr.
Thank you.
K?
Nothing else. Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay, Susan there? Should I be asking Susan?
She waved.
She waved. Okay. This meeting stands adjourned. Thank you all very much.